but it's just like, it's always that. It's every game. It's not like I can play like other things than AD carries, right?
I mean, unless you play Garen Yumi, where you can just run around like an idiot. But I guess
true, yeah.
that's not back in the meta yet. I mean, all I have to say about that is I've never heard Reckless use the term that he was just flipping it in the bot lane.
Yeah.
Have you ever seen that from him? I don't know. I just feel like that might be like unique to you. But I mean,
you know, like to make a serious point, normally when people talk about AD carry role, it's supposed to be like you're supposed to be very responsible because it's about not dying. So that's why people were worried when he first swapped to that role, because what you were famous for in mid lane was even if you did die, you might just turn the whole game around later and win it anyway. It wouldn't matter, you know.
So just to like, comment on that. I mean, I think everyone, like every single game flips it, like, because it's a game of like imperfect information, right? So like, I don't think anyone plays 100% conscious of what everyone else can do and without like being able to be.
No, Forgiven does. He always tells me. Yeah, he always tells me he knows exactly what's going on at all times. It's everyone else's fault.
Yeah.
Aside from him, though, I agree. Normal humans, yeah, sure.
So I think it's more than just like making the decision to flip it. It was more just like me not having the information. Like I didn't play enough against Syro Khan that I actually realized like the amount of damage they can actually pull out and the amount of like, just skill pressure they have. So I think it's more a case of like, it's not like, for example, now I will always not do the same mistakes. And that's I think the important part, just like learning from what you actually did wrong, right?
Yeah. I mean, also Ezreal is harder to run it down with than Aphelios for sure. So, you know, maybe the champion pick.
Janna and Yumi healing.
Yeah. No, I was actually so surprised you didn't end up getting MVP of that game. I was sure that was the one where you were going to get MVP, and then somehow they give it to Yanko. So, I mean, what was up with that? I mean, did you guys have a talk afterwards? You know, did he rob you? Like, what happened there?
Oh, yeah, I mean, he did steal the Baron, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's probably why I got it. I think actually, like a lot of people were telling me that. I mean, Yankos also tweeted something about like, Cap should have gotten the MVP or something. Mm-hmm. But I mean, for me, it's like, I'm fine not getting MVP. I will just take the MVP of the final instead.
Oh yeah, I mean, you're the
go on.
I was just gonna say he's the only one that's ever won MVP of an international tournament, right? He's the only Western player to win MVP of an international tournament. So maybe you can do it again.
One thing I want to ask you is, right, because no one ever actually asks you this in interviews for some reason. What do you actually think of Perkz as a mid laner this season? Because you're in a perfect position to judge it. You're not only in the server with him, but you obviously played the role yourself. So how do you think he's doing his swap back to mid lane?
So, I mean, obviously I have always thought that Perkz was probably like the best guy next to me. There was like never really anyone.
You didn't think he was as good as you though, surely?
What?
You didn't think he was as good as you though, right?
I think in season 7, I thought that he was like the only guy I had to like become better than. So I thought he was better than me basically. But I think in season 8, I thought I was better. I'm sure if you asked him, he would probably say the same thing. But I mean, probably like not about season 7, right? But
I don't know, man. I feel like if you ever ask Perkz that, he would just say that he's just the best.
Caps is better, I think.
You think so? I think Perkz would say he's the best.
First of all, he did literally evacuate the role to let Caps have it. I mean, so I'm guessing he thought on paper. No, have you lagged out or something, mate?
Oh, okay. Yeah. Wait, guys, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. Did your screen go black?
No, it just like lagged.
Never mind.
Maybe it's my internet. I have Spectrum, which is the worst internet service provider, in the nation. But unfortunately, the way that LA works is there's a monopoly of internet services where you can only get one per area. So they're just allowed to give me shitty service no matter how much money I pay. It's really unlucky, but
that doesn't sound good, yeah.
Yeah, no, I mean, just going into your point, the only reason I was saying that I don't think Perkz would say that is we talked to Perkz on the show. We asked him about like, if you changed to jungle, how good would you be in jungle? He's like, maybe in like 3 weeks I'd be the best jungler in LEC. He said some shit like that. So now I just think that he's just fucking. He just thinks that he's goated in every role.
But what I meant as well is that he would say the same as in like he would be the best. Mm-hmm. I think like I don't know about everyone, right? But I assume that most people, especially like at the top of the top of LEC, think that they're the best at their role. Because else it's like kind of awkward, I could imagine.
I know what you mean. Like you have to think you have a chance to be the best and you can beat people. But put it this way, Caps, I've very rarely, when you've been on Fnatic at the end and then now G2, I almost never hear the other mid laners say they think they're better than you. Like for some weird reason, they put you on a pedestal here and they just compete with the other guys. I don't know if it's just because, like, I've always thought a lot of players do. I'll give you an analogy. A very unusual thing that you might notice about women. Again, not the most appropriate topic for this stream, but whatever, we'll dive in, boys. The one thing you might notice that is very unusual is they get really, like, neurotic about other women's hair. As in, if they have really beautiful straight hair, then they become obsessed with that. They have to curl their hair and make it frizzy and that. If they're the girl that has the frizzy hair, they're like, oh, it's a nightmare having frizzy hair. They try to straighten it all the time. And it's like, if you could just, if they just appreciate what they were good at, they could think they're the best, right? So in similar sense, I feel like just because you have like this rep as like a mad playmaker and doing all these genius stuff, for some reason, all the players, like I see Perks as a really good player, but he's more like a consistency player. They just look at what they aren't and think, oh, I wish I could do that stuff. So then they do put certain people on a pedestal. People don't tend to trash talk you much, Caps.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think so. I think, I like throughout my whole career, maybe in 2017, there was like a lot of people flaming me. But other than that, I feel like I've always been praised a lot. Like I've never had like super hard flame. I see like a lot of other people getting really hard trash talk. So I'm like obviously super grateful for that. I think it's maybe also like at least like just listening to some people. I think a lot of what's going on as well, which I don't know much about Reddit, but I feel like people tend to like pick like one guy that they're like, oh, this is the guy I'm working towards to becoming or whatever. And then in that sense, they can beat everyone else, Like let's say if I say IG is the team which I'm trying to become like, or IG is like Rookie is like the guy I want to play like, then everyone else is trash like compared to him. But the problem is just like when I actually face him, then I have been looking up to him at all this time. So I kind of get mental disadvantage against him, but mental advantage against everyone else in that sense.
Okay. Well, to be fair, actually, that's probably how you and Perks could have bonded, because you could have just said, look, we don't need to argue between the two of us who's better, because we both got completely shit stopped by Rookie, so we're both trash. So let's just both see if we can get as good as Rookie, and then problem solved,
Yeah, I think both of us. It's not like we really something we talk about, right? But I think both of us have a lot of respect for each other, and at the same time, we also just want to do more than we have done before, and more than any like Western team have done, right? And we just want to win the finals, like maybe next year.
Mm-hmm. Well, no, it's third time's the charm, right? That's what you tweeted. You said maybe next year. You predicted it before the finals. Like you knew it was over in the second one. So the third one is your time, and this is your 3-0.
Well, I mean, I kind of meant it because it was like my third Worlds. Mm-hmm. So I was hoping that wouldn't be the charm, but we can also just go with the third finals.
Yeah, third finals. That's what it has to be. As an AD carry, is there any like AD carries that you've looked up to, or you've been like, oh, I want to model my play after this guy when you started learning the role? Or was it just Perks because he played so well last year? Like, what did you decide when you changed roles?
Yeah, I mean, that's a good question, actually. I don't know if I have really anyone that I like look super up to. I think from like improving, it's probably Perks who helped me the most. I mean, obviously he was an AD carry, and he was also like a mid lane going to like AD carry. Mm-hmm. So he just helped me out with the transition, and also just like on how to be an AD carry basically. So it's not like I've been really looking super much into other AD carries than him. Just kind of like, I don't know if I have like adapted his style, but I've just like learned a lot of things from him basically.
Yeah. What about Doublelift? Do you ever decide to model your play after him? Maybe get on his level with Senna or anything?
I didn't, as I mentioned, it's just only mainly been Perks.
That's disrespect right there. I mean, I guess.
You have to realize it's kind of like Perks said. I actually think all the best mid laners do think that the other roles are worse than it's just like mid lane. Like they all think mid lane is the king role, don't they? And I've known a lot of them over the years, and they do secretly. Like they do think AD carries are just people just auto attacking. It's like I could do that AD. I have abilities, everything. Like.
Yeah, honestly, like I think especially last year. When Perks roles were up and we were doing like super great, we got really like ahead of ourselves as well. And I just remember that one game I played against top lane because it was the same thing, like, oh, I'll just go top lane, I'll just smash him in the lane because it's a top lane. Like, what can you really do? And then the jungle came, I was starting to people. Yeah, it didn't end very well.
Yeah, it's that ego. One thing I was going to ask you about is who do you have in the caps note? Right now, like whose names are there? Is it just Doonby? Like, is it Rookie and Doonby? Yeah.
Anyone else? Anyone else?
Who's in the caps note?
I think most of the LPL. Hopefully.
Oh my god.
I mean, the sad thing is, Faker's not even in it anymore because you've beat him that many times. It doesn't even matter, right? You must just put other people in there.
I mean, it's just, I don't know. That's just something about the LPL. I think, like, it doesn't even have to. It's like,
he might cut out a second.
I think you're cutting out for a second. Hold on.
Also, just like RNG, IG, FPX, like all these teams just kind of like made fun of us. Mm-hmm. I guess the only team we actually beat was EG, and even that was like super sketchy. So, yeah, I think we need some LPL teams. yeah,
the
leave some
set?
tricks against them.
Okay.
Pretty much.
Yeah, makes sense. One thing I was going to ask you about, because so somebody who I talked to a decent amount is Broken Blade, and he played in Turkey, and I know that you played in Turkey with Xerxes, right? For Dark Passage,
Yeah.
I believe. How is it over there? Is it really just the wild, wild west? I've heard all these stories about, some people just don't even get fucking paid. Like, it's just like, it's crazy over there. How was it playing in Turkey?
Well, so basically, like, how it happened for me was, like, I was in summer vacation. So basically, I joined from, like, the last week of the regular season and then just playoffs. And my team was, like, super good. They were, like, I think they were the first or second team when I joined, like, in the regular season. And basically, I just joined this team. And it was like the dream, because it was just the first time that I was in a gaming house, and I loved it, like I could just play League of Legends all day, every day. Like there was like nothing else to do basically. And there was like, there was just no interruptions, like nothing else. I didn't have to do anything. Like I just played League of Legends all day. We just like got fed food, and just go get water. That was like the only thing I did. And I was just playing till like 7 a.m. every single morning. And I was waking up like 3 p.m. And as soon as I woke up, we just went like directly to scrims. It was just like, I didn't really know what to do in like a game house, and I was just playing League 24/7, and it was actually just a dream. And I think in terms of like being in Turkey and like my teammates and stuff like this, I don't really have anything negative to say. I think
you got paid.
I got paid. I think everything was, and also
that's a change.
Even if I hadn't been paid, I mean, I guess it was more just like me going to Turkey was more just to prove myself, because obviously I had before that I didn't have the best year, and I wanted my opportunity to prove myself, right?
Were you 16 at the time?
Yeah. Me and Turks were both 16. So basically we couldn't actually go to like to Worlds, like when we qualified for I don't even remember what it was called back then, but basically play-ins, and we couldn't
International Wildcard Qualifier, I think. Yeah,
that one. And we couldn't go to Worlds as well. And basically what ended up happening was that Albus Nox ended up beating Dark Passage 3-2 in like the last round basically, and going to Worlds, right? And Albus Nox ended up pulling out G2 of groups. So what I always say is that like, but if me and Xerxes would have been there, then we would have been at Worlds pushing out G2 of groups. And then at some point it went a bit further. So I was like, we would probably have won Worlds in 2016.
No, I mean, maybe you had a chance, because that quarterfinals match for Albus Nox was against H2K, and H2K was not like the strongest team in Europe or anything. I mean, most people would say that G2 is stronger than H2K at that point. So.
Get Yankos as well.
Yankos and IWDominate and Forgiven. Could have made him lose his hair even faster. I mean, it could have been crazy out there. So, I just wanted to ask about that experience. That's different than what I've heard, because most of the people just speak about Turkey. I guess Dark Passage is definitely one of the most established teams, but some of the players that go over there, like I know Nori went over there, he didn't get paid shit. Like there's a bunch of like issues where
there's definitely been a lot of horror stories.
Yeah. Closer has a horror story last year where they like had imports on their team, and their team was really good, and supposedly like Royal Youth Bandits was supposed to be like the superstar team, and they just had to cut all the imports randomly because they just didn't have the money to pay them, so they just cut all the imports randomly. The team still ended up going to Worlds, but I've heard a lot of different things.
It also depends on what an experience is like, what your expectation level is going in, like how high, low. Like maybe these people went there expecting it to be professionals. Caps is so wholesome. He was going like, it was amazing. We got there and they were like, you could play League of Legends all day long. You were like, for real? Like, I don't have to do chores. And they're like, yeah. And then after that, we bring you food. He was like, oh my God. Like, it's like he was almost making it like, even if I didn't get paid, the experience, it's what it's all about. It's like, he didn't have high expectations, Dom. He's just looking for anything.
Because I mean, obviously, like, it's just like now it's just like kind of my life, I guess. But back then, it was basically a dream, because it was just playing League of Legends. You eat food, then we sometimes in the evenings we would get out, like eat an ice cream or something like this. So it was just like there was like no bad part of it. Basically, it was just like from when you wake up to you go to sleep, everything is just like nice, like in that sense.
Yeah, I've got a question. Is it not surreal to you that everyone remembers, right, when you first came to the LEC, it was LCS at the time, but whatever, everyone obviously brought up that famous clip where you were in solo queue and you flamed Faker, right? You've actually not only played Faker tons of times, like you've beaten him most of the time. Like it's actually must be pretty surreal, right?
Yeah, I mean, for sure, yeah. I mean, obviously, like I don't know if who actually thinks I flame Faker.
You just BM'd him. You BM'd him.
Yeah, I BM'd him because I would never write this if I didn't know it was actually Faker, right? It was just like Faker was obviously the guy I looked up to the most, probably. I mean, obviously there's also stuff like Burks next Faker. There's a lot of mid laners, right? But he was probably the guy who was insane, right? So it was the craziest to meet him in solo queue. and I think Paul and Def were also in that game. So I was just sitting on TeamSpeak with my friend, and we were basically just trolling around because it was like such a weird feeling to play against like these kind of players. And basically at the time I was playing a lot of Riven. So the fact that he picked Riven, I was like, oh wow, he took it away from me, like he didn't want to let me get Riven. And yeah, it backfired.
Yeah, no, I mean that's a famous clip, man. What was your name at the time? It was like Enigma Caps or something?
Yeah, that was like the best video ever.
Yeah, no, I love that video. One thing I guess I was just gonna ask you is, what was it like in 2017, like improving throughout the split and like going into 2018, like what really made you guys like the best team? Because before 2017, you guys were like third place. Sometimes like I think you were like second for a little, drop back down to third. I think you joined Worlds as the third seed from Europe in 2017. So what was it like? Having that improvement, like how did you go from being the second, third best team to the best team? Because I feel like that's it might just seem like, oh, you just get like a little bit better, but I feel like those are such massive worlds apart, being like a second, third team in Europe.
Oh no, the jump up was huge, because if everyone remembers, the reason they had to go through that gauntlet is they got completely wrecked by that Misfits team when Misfits wasn't even supposed to be that good. Like it was supposed to be Fnatic in that final, that like season 7 summer one. So like there obviously was problems the year before it. So how was season 8 so good? Like that was like the perfect season almost.
Yeah, for sure. I think it's also different to season 7 to season like spring and summer. Like season 7 spring, we barely made playoffs, and then we like turned it around and became like super good suddenly, and we ended up on third place. And then in summer, I think it was a much different split. We were basically stomping everyone. We were like 2-0ing like most teams. I think we only had like 2 or 3 losses, and it was like best of 3s back then in the regular season. And I think all those 3 losses were to the 3 bottom teams. So basically, I think I went back and looked, and we didn't lose a single best of 3 to any playoff team, basically. So in going into the playoffs, we were obviously like a strong team, and we were much better than just from regular season than the split before. But I think, I'm not actually sure what happened in the playoffs. I think maybe we were just like a bit too ahead. Maybe I think blame on myself.
I think you're cutting out again. You can just say what you just said again.
Just repeat it.
It's all good. It's all good.
So basically, I think I was really cocky because of how good we were doing during the split. And I thought that G2 would be a challenge for us. But for me, like Misfits was just like a free win. And I think it may be like, I think my thoughts also just kind of like echoed in like everyone else's thoughts as well. And I think in that sense, we were very like arrogant in our preparation for Misfits. So I think that was like a huge part why we didn't go further than we did in that summer split. And I think the big reason why we like suddenly became like the undisputed best and like in next year, or like the best, like we were like much better than everyone else, I feel like, was, I mean, obviously Hudesang joined, but I also think the fact that like, let's say G2 team obviously was completely new roster, and also that we got Youngbuck, who had like all the strategies and all the like information from G2 we could implement in our gameplay. I think that helped us like so much.
Yeah, that is one part, by the way, Dom, no one ever brings up when they talk about that Fnatic team. It's like, oh, and they overcame G2. Yeah, the best spot lane in the entire region did leave and go to NA. Like they had Hjarnan and Wadid. Like, it's actually amazing that team was second place in that first split. Like, I don't hate on anyone, but Wadid is not a good player, and Hjarnan was like average at best. Come on, let's be real.
That was a Heimer one trick, but they were making it work. I mean, shit, that team ended up beating Uzi at Worlds, man. That bot lane
has to be one of the most ridiculous upsets of all time, by the way.
Yeah. I mean, that to me, that game 5, I said it to Perks. That LeBlanc game was, in my mind,
it was legendary.
That was Perks' best game of all time. I just like, he's playing against RNG, and he's just solo carrying the whole team, like 11-1 on LeBlanc, something like that.
That's why I told that ridiculous story where that actually made me, like, for a second, stop being a cynical person who's seen a lot of esports. I started believing. I really thought he could beat Rookie. That's why I sent him that straight fire message, and then obviously just got stopped anyway. I was like, well, I backed off from all my feelings. Like, I shouldn't have said that. Shit, man.
I was also really hoping that they would beat IG.
Yeah, no, that would have been so good for the game. I feel like having just a European team win Worlds, I feel like.
I mean, NA fans would have melted down on Reddit, Tom, if it was 2 EU teams in the final. Like, this shit talking would never end at that point.
Fuck those fans. Those fans are super delusional anyway.
That's true.
Like, the NA fans at this point, I mean, I have no clue what to even say about them. That's like the one thing that I appreciate about Europe, is it seems like the fans are so much more like actually like critical, but their opinions are so much more well thought out than a lot of the NA fans. Like, a lot of NA fans are just like pure fanboys. Like, I saw things on Reddit about Doublelift's benching where it's like, he like goes on camera, he's like, I don't give a fuck about the game. And like, people are like, dude, Doublelift just says random things at random points. Anyone who's a Doublelift fan knows that. So like you can't take his words with like any value at all. And it's like come on, man. Like this guy clearly just doesn't care right now. Like he's not lying to you. It's not like some 5D fucking chess in his head where he's coming up with like the perfect strategy to, make sure that everyone is, against him or thinks low of him, and then whenever he turns it on, like he's trying again. Like I don't know.
No. And by the way, can I just say that storyline is pure banter, because when obviously the whole thing of like Doublelift got benched, and then he was saying himself like it's really motivated me. They did all those comments like I'm back, I'm ready to do it again. He had on his Twitter, he was posting all those pictures where all his former teammates were like, "Really love you, Peter. Hope you win this game." Like if this was a little kids movie, obviously in the movie he wins the game. In real life, loses to fucking dog shit Immortals. Like it's actually hilarious. Like it made it way funnier to me when I saw they were losing. I was like, Jesus,
they got fucking stomped too. Like
it's hilarious.
I mean, I don't know if you got to watch that game at all, Caps, but Ika had one of the best Qiyana plays of all time, level 4 that I've ever seen. Like I've never seen a Qiyana flash E, not cast his Q, so he doesn't flash EQ, he just flash E's, and then he cancels his E damage with his W, and then just W Qs with Mountain. So he literally like does about half the damage that he could, and just dies under turret, loses both sums, and just doesn't kill the Zoe. So that was.
I mean, I didn't see it, but that doesn't sound so good.
Oh, I'll probably send it to you afterwards. It was a very powerful, and just to imagine that team ends up winning the game, I mean, it just shows that TL is just really struggling right now. I mean, I guess we can get your opinion on that, because I'm sure that you played against them when they were in EU during the last Worlds. So, like, have you watched any of TL? Like, what do you think about them? I mean, they're obviously the best team in NA for 4 splits, and now they're maybe not even going to make playoffs, currently tied for 7th.
Yeah, so I mean, I'm not sure what to think of them exactly. I mean, we watched some of their games, but I think, like, it used to in the past a lot of top teams would underperform really hard in the beginning of spring, but right now it feels like it's like they're almost out of playoffs, right? If they lose like 3 more games or something like this, they're out of playoffs. So yeah, it's like I'm getting a bit too close. Like Fnatic in spring last year, for example, was like the same kind of thing. So in that sense, we've just seen it before, and I think it comes with like a mix of what obviously Double said about like he doesn't care that much about spring split or whatnot, because we have like a similar kind of mindset in G2 in the sense that we care. It's not that we don't care about spring split. It's just more that we don't want to get burned out. And for us, Worlds is like by far the most important, but also obviously want to win EU. But it's just we have to make a way where we get like we are the best at Worlds. Like it doesn't help us if we are like the best in like next week going up against Rogue. We want to be the best when we meet the LPL teams basically, right? And I think there has to be a balance to it. Obviously, Doublelift won like 4 times now in a row, I think, or maybe even more.
Yeah, 4. No, he actually won 5 because he won with TSM.
TSM as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, so basically he won like so many times in a row, so I could imagine. And then he always goes to international tournaments and like the losers, right? I mean, obviously he was close to MSI last year, but other than that, it's he wants to.
That wasn't close. I mean, you were in the fucking game. So don't tell me that shit was close. That was the most brutal stomp I've seen in the finals. Like you guys just shit on them.
Well, I would like to think that I was close in my finals.
Okay.
So.
All right, okay. I'll give it to you.
That makes sense. The way you did that, right, mentally almost made sense there. Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. I mean,
I just looked it up now. Like, basically, since Team Liquid is on 6-8 record now, I'm looking it up, and it looks like normally to make playoffs, you need a minimum of 8 games.
Yeah, so you need 8 wins, but then
they have to pretty much win out almost.
Yeah, and they have pretty hard schedules. So the last week they play FlyQuest and C9, which are like 1 and 2 in the league.
I mean, they're going to lose that C9 game, so there's 1.
Yeah.
They're in trouble, mate.
Yeah, no, so they're seriously in trouble, and like this was supposed to be their week to win. They had CLG and Immortals, which for my money are 2 of the worst teams in the league, even though Immortals is currently 7-7. That team just doesn't have any firepower on it. In my perspective. So yeah, I mean, they should be pretty screwed going forward. Like they really need to make massive improvements this week to even qualify for playoffs. I think that it's so crazy that we're in like a world where TL is not going to even make playoffs in NA, because NA is not strong right now.
But Broxah turned it around last year, right? So maybe.
Yeah.
And I mean, the thing is, I mean, the question is if it's too late, right? But again, I feel like throughout the years we've seen so many times that like the best teams or like some of the top teams struggle so hard in the beginning, and even like towards the middle, they only look like a middle pack team. Now, obviously, the one with Fnatic last year, and this one is like very extreme because it's like they have to win like every single game basically for like 8 games in a row or something. So that's going to complete win streak. But let's say you thought of TL from last year, right? I mean, I could see them winning every game in NA,
Yeah, definitely.
So if it's just about if they can actually turn that switch and become like that good in time, right? And I don't know if they can do that, but maybe they will.
Well, I guess
the upside is, aside from T9, everyone is beatable in NA still. Even though I agree, Dom, those teams that like FlyQuest is better than Team Liquid, but it's still FlyQuest.
Yeah, no, it's FlyQuest.
It's not impossible,
for sure.
Certainly.
I mean, I guess the one thing I would say about your analogy there is like, I understand why Fnatic was struggling, right? They replaced you. You were by far the best mid laner in the league. They replaced you with somebody who had never played LCS level before. I mean, obviously he played Nemesis played in Spanish League, but he had never played proper competition. So like it makes sense that there was more of a learning curve where like they had to build up together. When you look at this TL roster, like you have 4 players that were supposed to be like some of the best in their role already, and then you're adding Broxah in from Europe, and Broxah should be theoretically an upgrade over Xmithie. So the reason that they're doing so bad just doesn't make sense to me. Like I could see it with Fnatic. With TL, it just seems really out of place. It feels like just the players that we saw last year are just like worse. I mean, we have Impact playing Zac Top, getting hard smashed by Soaz. Like I think Soaz, like I respect Soaz like as a player, but I feel like he's more of like a serviceable, like at this point, like tank player. Is kind of how I see him. And just to see like Impact losing that hard in like the Zac Renekton matchup with 5th pick, by the way, he gets all the draft resource, he gets 5th pick counter pick, and he's down 40 CS in lane. It just seems so weird to me. Like I just don't know what happened to this team.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not sure about the exact games, right? But I mean, to talk in TL's favor again, I think like obviously for like the first 3-4 weeks or something, they obviously had their academy jungle playing in. And I mean, Broxah came back, and then I could at least excuse like a week or 2 weeks even, because if you just fly to America, you're jet lagged. You have to play with a completely different team. Like there's like a lot of excuses, right?
Yeah.
And
I love excuses, but still.
if they now, I mean, they just have to basically that like they have a really like a lot of excuses to do bad, but now they just like now there's like the excuses are running out right now. Broxah's been there for a few weeks, and now this is when they should be like the top team again.
Sure.
And if they are that, then they can probably still make playoffs, and then even if they're like low seed, they should be able to make it there. So I'm not counting them out, right? But yeah.
Right, being as you obviously had Broxah as your jungler for 2 years, how would you describe Broxah as a jungler? Like, how do you have to use him? How do you work with him?
How would I describe Broxah? I mean, I think Broxah, like I think joining. So I think Broxah is like very adaptive in that sense. This
is the opposite of what we heard last time. So I love this take. Continue.
Okay.
Yep.
Wait. So basically, I mean, I can tell the story of like. Basically, like what happened when Broxah joined Fnatic back in the day, right? And the problem was probably that we had like a lot of people with different views on the game, on how to play the game, how we want to do this, and it basically caused like a lot of. I mean, it's just made so no one actually we didn't have a game plan because everyone had different game plans. So basically, when we got Broxah instead, Broxah was fine doing whichever game plan that was like someone else made, basically. So in that sense, he just fit in. And suddenly, like we went from being like not really sure what to do, I was ending every game, to reckless carrying every game, right? We just went bot. Broxah had like all these different cheese paths to gank bot, and he realized his purpose, and then he just hard camp bot, So in that sense, he fit right into us, is what I mean.
So you're saying he's more like adaptive, like out of game, like in game. So we talked to Blippo recently. We talked to him like maybe like 2-3 weeks ago, and his biggest criticism of Broxah as a player was that. Like, he was good at following the game plan that was set before the game, but in game, if circumstances changed, he's had, he would have problems adapting to the new circumstances in game. Do you think that that's fair, or do you just see him differently as a player?
I mean, I think that's like fair. I mean, obviously, it's to an extent to everyone, but I think for sure, Broxah was always like, he always had like a very clear game plan in mind, right? So if someone like completely did like something completely crazy, like if they invaded or like they say lane traded too much or something like this, it would like throw us off guard. And I mean, that's why you saw like most of the time in Fnatic, we were just like level 3 gank bot. We do like a different cheese level 4 gank bot. Like these kind of things was like most of our early games, right? And we had a lot of success with that. So it's not like it's a bad thing. Like I think if we didn't have these kind of like really strong game plans, there's no way we would like even be close to like third in the 2 years we had, or like climbing up afterwards, I think.
Makes sense.
I mean,
actually, another thing we wanted to ask you about, right, is when we had Bwipo on the episode, Dom tried to like poke into the whole thing where last year, anyone behind the scenes knows there was a lot of problems in Fnatic, like even personally, and people, sometimes literally just personal things, sometimes people disagreeing, like you're saying here, how to play the game, the philosophy. Wait there a second, my camera's frozen. But basically, Bwipo kind of just deflected it. Like, he just said, like, yeah, there was drama, but, you know, there's drama in every team, which, by the way, like, this is the problem with doing interviews or talk shows. You can disagree a bit with the guest, but you're not going to make a huge thing out of it and call them a liar or whatever. You're just going to go, if that's your opinion, whatever, you can say that. But when you left the team and came to G2, right, you officially said you did it because you wanted, like, a new challenge or something, which sounds like some marketing agency gave you a cool way to phrase it. I heard there was, like, some elements where it's like, there was something about the atmosphere in Fnatic wasn't as cool, or you didn't enjoy it as much. Is there some truth to that?
So I mean, like, basically, obviously leaving Fnatic was like, it was not an easy decision. Like, we obviously won 2 times. We got second at Worlds, and I thought if I stay in Fnatic, we'll probably win the spring split. We'll probably win the summer split. But I just didn't see us going like further than we had gone. And like, a lot of that.
I mean, you guys went like, you went pretty far. I mean, you guys went finals of Worlds.
You have to win. Yeah.
But the thing is, I want to win it, right? And I felt like we would not go further than that. And that, a lot of that came to atmosphere, and it was more just like, I don't know if it was so much of us being like in disagreements as us just like, because we were really good at fixing our atmosphere. We didn't have like, as like we towards the end, we started learning each other, and we knew what to like not do to like frustrate each other. But in the same sense, it also like kind of stagnated us, where we couldn't improve anymore because we couldn't work on things, because then someone would get frustrated. So we were kind of like in this and in this place where it didn't feel like it was very hard to improve. Is how it felt, and that's why I couldn't see us going even further, and that's why I, for example, thought, I mean, not even just from not even just from me, it's like a higher chance of winning Worlds, even also just for Fnatic, right? I think me leaving was a really good thing for Fnatic, for example. And we can maybe say that, I mean, you can disagree with it, right? But I'm saying we might we might have just one spring and summer. But at the same time, you can also say, going into spring split last year, I think all of Fnatic was in the same kind of thoughts that I was talking about Doublelift having, maybe Jisoo having, where, okay, spring is going to be easy, and then we're just going to have to like be really good at MSI, right? And playoffs. But let's say that thing happened with me. I think we would not have gone like 2-8. We would maybe have gone like 4-4 or something like this, 5-5, you know, these kind of scores. And then instead of like realizing we did something wrong, we would just feel like, oh, that's what we did every split, because we did that in some. Right? And we would just not improve. But because they went like 2-8 or 0-10, I mean, whatever they went, right? They just said like, okay, we are doing everything wrong. We need to change things, and they changed things. A lot of what the things they wanted to implement going to spring split that I was also like hearing about them wanted to implement, they went back on, and a lot of the things basically got changed because it wasn't working. And that was like my thoughts joining Fnatic, or like staying on Fnatic, I guess. And that's why I think, like, let's say I had stayed on that split, maybe we would have still won the split, but I think we would have been a much worse team than Fnatic. Okay, I mean, we would probably be like, I think we would be a worse team than Fnatic was in last year, and that would not be a G2 team at this level either. So in all Europe, would just be like a lot worse, I think.
Yeah, good for Europe as a whole. I mean, I can
I
understand
don't know if I believe him on that one, Dom. I see how he constructed the argument. He made it, but my whole argument would be you never would have been 2-7 or whatever if you were on that team, Caps. You would have been second in the league or third or first. So I just don't buy it. Also, the other thing I wanted to say, Dom, because I want to get your take on this, is people might not realise who are fans how rare what he said before about how even though they'd won both the splits and made the World's Finals, to him it was like, yeah, but we didn't win World's Finals. If I want to be in a team that wins World's Finals, I have to like assess, can this team do it? And he didn't think they could. That is super rare. Almost every Western player I know would be the opposite. They'd go, well, I won both the splits, so I'm on top of my region. What, I made the World's Finals? Like, no one does that. Like, fuck it. Not even delusional. They'll just think like, you know, if we work hard next year and improve, maybe next year we could take a step up. But I mean, it's like I think it's very rare that you'd get someone who'd actually like be of like cynical enough to be like, we wouldn't win. I have to go somewhere else.
Us NA folk, we're still trying to get out of groups, so we can't even comprehend like leaving a team in Worlds Finals to try to make another team get to Worlds Final. Like we're just like, man, can we please just beat one team at Worlds one time? Like that's all we care about.
Doublelift's listening to this. He was like, and then he goes, yeah, well, I made Worlds Finals, but I didn't think I was going to win it. Doublelift's like. Like, chance would be a fine thing. Give me a chance of that.
Yeah, I mean, and to be fair, like even though both of the teams ended up like falling 0-3 in the World Finals, like I could definitely, I think G2 was a much better team than Fnatic was in that finals. Like it felt, I don't know how you felt about the games versus FPX. Like I don't know if you just feel like they were just way better than you, but at least from my perspective, I feel like it was just kind of like a rough series for you guys. Like it just maybe wasn't the best preparation coming in. Maybe if you guys had another chance at it, like I don't feel like it was that you guys were so far under the level of them. Whereas like the IG series, when I watched that series in 2018, I was like, it felt like you guys could never win, you know?
Oh no, here's the difference. In the IG series, it looked like IG was just way better. Like at that point in the tournament, they looked insane how good their players were. The FPX series, like I genuinely do think FPX just had the perfect read on how G2 played. Like they looked like they had exactly the game plan. What do you think, Caps?
Yeah, I think that's like a fair statement. I think the IG series, I was like very skeptical going into the series because I felt like our game plan just like would not work basically. And also just like going into the games themselves, it was just hard to draft against them, and it was like impossible to actually play the game. It felt like against IG. Whereas FPX, I still think right now we could have won it if we did things differently. And it's just like, I mean, I for sure think we could have won that series. I think they were like a lot better than us on the day, but hopefully they will not be better in like 7 months or whenever the world next final is.
Yeah. You know, there's another thing as well. If I contrast the Fnatic you were in and then the G2 you were in, if you were saying before about like not knowing if there's a possibility to win, etc., one thing I've noticed a lot of people forget about the time when you were in Fnatic is everyone remembers last year's Fnatic, the one where they had to overcome all these problems. Part of how they overcame the problem is what people call like band-aid fixes. Like they found a few champions that worked for them. They stuck to those comps. They got really, really good at those comps, and like hence why in the summer they were getting all those early game advantages every single game. But they made them like a limited team. Like there's like they didn't have like a million ways to play, and they couldn't just draft anything. For example, you kind of knew what they were going to go with. People forget your Fnatic was kind of like that as well. You had like fairly like limited sets of champions that you were going to pick. So it must be interesting being in G2, because G2 obviously now with all the meme picks feels like the opposite. Like anything can get pulled out in a G2 game. Like any player can carry in a G2 game. It must be very different in that sense.
Yeah, for sure. I think like band-aid fix was like a really good word we also used back then. I think we were really, really good at that. Like we were like, I think we might even just be the best team in the world at that, because we had like a lot of problems, like in-game problems basically, that we fixed with just band-aid fixes, where it's like, yeah, we put like a band-aid on it, so it's not a problem now, but like as soon as we realize, or as soon as people start abusing it, or people do like something different, then we can't move forward, you know? Or stuff like, let's say, even just like, it comes back to things like, let's say we ban 3 champions. Banning 3 champions and we win every game, that would be great, right? But what happens when there's like one OP champion and you just have to ban? Suddenly we're out of bans because we're stuck banning those other 3 champs. And the same thing goes for like a lot of in-game stuff where we just didn't really have a solution. We just kind of pushed it to the side. And that's what I came back, well, I was talking about more about earlier, right? Where we were really good at not making problems. Like we were not... we're very good at like avoiding problems between each other, but that only works so far because you need the problems. And on G2 we have a lot of problems, and I think that comes from Perks. I think he's like very unique in that sense, where he's like very direct, you know. Like if someone is inting, if someone is flaming, like he will call them out, you know. And no one minds that. Everyone is down with it, and that's what.
Is he kind of the captain then?
Yeah, I mean you can say that. I think we're all doing it, but I think we do it because of like the culture he made in the sense. Okay. I mean, obviously it's his team in the sense that he was here before. Like me and Miki just joined with Wounded Yankas. Before that, there was also his like team that they joined, right? And the culture was already set. And the culture was just that you are very honest with your teammates. You know, if someone does something you don't like, you don't just like ignore it and hope that it gets better. You call them out for it. You know, if Miki is roaming mid and I want him to be bot at some point, I will say like, why are you roaming? And no one has hard feelings because everyone knows that everyone just wants to win. It's nothing personal. It's just we just want to improve.
Yeah, I've heard that this is one of the biggest criticisms of NA teams, is that NA feedback is very like, we don't try to hurt each other's feelings. You know,
exactly.
Everyone's just trying to be like mannered. And I know Bang did an interview recently where it feels like his problems don't improve because there's always like a new problem every week. And with just the way the criticism is delivered, it doesn't make people feel like the urgency. Like if in your team people are just like, hey, like I think that this is bad. Like, why did you do that? Like, they don't feel personally attacked. Like Mickey isn't like, oh, why did you roam mid? Like, oh shit, Caps thinks I'm like a bad support. He still thinks that like you guys like share each other's respect. So I feel like that's just
the key is how he said they don't make it personal, you know, because they know it's the culture. They know that, like, for example, if Caps is calling out Mickey, well, they know that next week Mickey might call out Caps if he does something for it. It's not kind of like he's not just doing it just to fuck with Mickey. So I think they've, in that sense, sounds like Perks has done a great job making, as you said, the culture of the team.
I think that also, just like you said, NA teams are like that, but I think like a lot, I mean, not just EU teams, I think a lot of EU teams are like that as well. Like, if not every single EU team. I think, like, from my understanding, and just like, I had Mithy as like, I mean, he was not a coach, but he was just like helping us for one day. Mithy was very much the same kind of guy. So it's obvious like that was just how G2 culture was, you know, with Mithy and Perks back in the day, where they were just very direct to each other. They were calling out each other. And just when now I'm working with Perks, and when I had that day with Mithy, you can see that this is just how they are, you know?
Yeah.
Yes. That's why it made perfect sense to me, by the way, when you hear the stories about when Sven and Mithy joined TSM, as to why that team went completely to shit. Because I can't even imagine NA players who expect like no one to call them out playing in a team with Mithy. Like, that's what universe is that ever going to work? Like, it's gonna obviously have a clash. I
mean, I feel like the only player that should have responded negatively to that on that lineup would be like Mike Young, for example, because I feel like Hanser and Bjergsen like are like that. That's one of the things that I've heard about Bjergsen in general, is that he's very open with that type of criticism. One
thing that was very interesting that Sven said when we did the first episode of like the reboot of Summoning Insects, he actually dropped the dime on a load of stuff from TSM, was one of the things he said was that, I think it was that one of the reasons why they had to replace Hanser is that Hanser like didn't like the fact that he was being like the weak side player and that they would play through bot and stuff, which is funny because everyone thinks Hanser loves that because obviously he's amazing at doing it, by the way. So it's just bizarre to me. Like, apparently it sounds like there was some clash with some of the players.
Yeah. I mean, the thing that doesn't make sense about that is if you're going for a weak side player, right, you replace Hanser because you want to get somebody who's strong playing the weak side. Why are you going for Broken Blade right after that?
That's true.
Because I feel like Broken Blade is another player that is like a strong side player. And if you look at TSM now, that is when TSM looks their best. Like, I hate when they go bot lane for Kabi and Biofrost. I love
the joke would be this. Like, here's the mean joke that I'll do that. I'm saying it's a joke, obviously not serious, but the joke would be like, that's Reginald's level of thinking. He's like, why would we have a weak side at all? Just be strong on all sides.
I mean,
and then they all just go, sure thing, boss. Like, does he sign the checks yet? Fuck shit. Like,
I mean, it's just,
I don't give a fuck, man.
I mean, the thing about that is like, at least now they have like the right personality fit, because I feel like people like Sven, people like Broken Blade, they all want the resources, right? They're like, give me the ball type players. Like, let me carry this fucking game. Whereas like now that at least there's like a proper dynamic where it's like, if you get somebody like Kabi, who's like the serviceable AD carry, always reliable, doesn't die a lot, Biofrost, like a reliable support, same type of mindset, not super aggressive in terms of their like ability to like call for resources, be like, oh, we can dive on this wave, etc. I mean, if you've ever played with fucking Broken Blade and solo queue, you know that like the game starts level 1, the minions crash, he's pinging the third wave, like, we can dive on this wave, like, get your ass up here. Like, that's just how he is. So I just like seeing that now they at least have some type of identity, whereas before it just felt like they were just some like fucking random like amoeba of a team where it's like, all right, well, we don't know what the fuck they do. I mean, sometimes they go bot, sometimes they go top, and then Sven just ints the game randomly every single time, no matter what happens, like once it gets to mid or late game. So at least now TSM, I think, has some type of identity, which is why for me, they're the second best team in NA, because at least they do something, right? Like, I feel like the problem with NA right now is you have C9, which I believe are actually a good team, that are probably getting slightly limited by the region they play in, and then TSM that actually does stuff, and none of our other teams have any identity at all. Like, if you look at TL, what are they now? Last year, they were this bot-centric team, right? They have Xmithy go towards bot side, they have one of the strongest laning bot lanes in Doublelift and Core JJ, and they play off, like, they play to draft strong winning bot lanes, and then they have their jungler play around the lane, and they win the game through bot side. Whereas, like, now it's just, I don't even know what they do well anymore. Like, they just don't have an identity as a team. So, I mean, I guess my TSM point is like at least now they fucking do something. I'll take it over the 2018 TSM for sure.
Yeah, I mean, it feels like obviously TSM does stuff, but also like looking at C9. We didn't watch a lot of games, but I think I just watched the one versus, actually I don't remember who it was against, but I just know he was playing Zoe and he like invaded level 2, taking enemy blue buff.
It was versus FlyQuest. He stole Santorin's blue. Yep.
Because I was looking at C9, I was like, okay, let's see like why is this 10-0? And I couldn't actually believe like how much Niski was doing. And I don't know if it was that game specific, but basically within 5 minutes he was like roaming like 5 times. And he still was like falling behind in lane. So that was just kind of shocking.
That to me was so RNG though. Like from the Zoe perspective, he gets a smite, so he gets a redemption on like the second wave, gets the push in lane, then gets a smite off the third wave and invades the blue buff. It's like, what the fuck? That's why every jungler just hates playing against Zoe. This champion is so bullshit for no reason. Like, why does it have to be like that?
It's true. I don't know how many like smites I've got on enemy. But it definitely looked really crazy, and just watching that, we were like, okay, that's pretty good.
That's their analysis. G2's watching that game. It's like, oh, I guess they're just a fucking lucky team. That's why they're in first, you know.
By the way, Caps, for you, I'm trying to think of the international tournaments you've been to. Were any of the international tournaments you've been to in America?
In America?
Yeah, it was like MSI or anything.
MSI, Rift Rivals.
Okay.
Wait, not MSI. Wait.
Maybe for when you were in Fnatic, wasn't that in America? Am I mistaken on that one? Or was that that might have been in Europe?
No, that was in Europe. That was in Europe, yeah. Wait.
Was any of them in the Worlds or anything in America when you were in any of these teams?
I feel like there was something, but maybe it was just always All Stars. No, All Stars. I guess All Stars and
So have you ever played NA solo queue then?
Yes, I mean I played like NA solo queue. When I'm in Rift Rivals, usually when I go to this kind of thing, we didn't play a lot of solo queue. We did more like escape rooms and stuff like this, just like team bonding.
Got a lot of those.
I mean, to be fair, playing Grab's Draft is like an escape room, isn't it? It's like, right, I've got some tools, some of them might work, some of them might be red herrings. Let's see if we can get out this motherfucker alive. Right? Starting now, 30 minutes. Too close. Sorry, Grabs. Too close.
That's a Janna top.
By the way, 2 things. One, before I forget, just because we brought up Grabs, does Grabs actually get bothered, by the way, by all the criticism of him? Because obviously the problem he has is like I'll be real. Because to me, I still remember where he came from before he was in the good G2s. And to me, he used to be the Rockat coach, which meant he was the coach of a bad team. And, you just think, are they any good, those coaches? Did they just do the job? So when he got this amazing team, like all these all-stars, and he's winning, unfortunately, people aren't going to give him that much credit because they go, yeah, but you have all the all-stars. Look, you have the best players in every position. But I do think from talking to him, he has his own vision of the game and his own idea and stuff. But not only do fans sometimes flame him because it's part of the meme as well, but that clip that Mark Sieb showed where LS is just going completely ham, like, you don't watch the fucking game, you just got told stuff, like, which I have to say, listen, LS is my boy, but he was absolutely spazzing on that. Like, that was a bit ridiculous, I'm going to say.
I respect it. I love that level of spasm. I know what you mean, Dom, but at the same time, like, it's all right if you're a streamer or someone like us. Like, I don't know if I'd do that if I was more in the official world, like, it's a little bit harsh. I would have, dressed up what he said the same way, but in a more appropriate manner. But what does Grabs actually think about that? Like, does it get to him at all that people kind of like don't give him full credit?
Wait, so I don't really know about like what the instance was, and I think
it was basically just because Grabs on the post-game lobby or whatever that thing's called on EU, he just made some comment where it was about that topic that LS always talks about, like should they build Morellos or Leandries or whatever. So it was actually something very light-hearted, but because to LS that's like life and death, like that's like the Bible to him, isn't it? So he was in like a holy war about the fact that he didn't know what he was talking about by saying he could complete Morellos there or something.
Okay, yeah. I mean, I think it always like I think it's hard to say that it doesn't bother you, right? Because everything bothers you in the sense that if someone says like, "Oh, you're trash every day," you would be bothered by it.
Sure.
But I think for sure, Grabs doesn't get bothered by it, like because he knows like 99% of people who are saying it as just jokes, right? It's also the jokes we have within our team because it's just kind of like the joke we made, right? It's like. I mean, especially Jankos always says like, "Oh, Grabs draft" or something like this, right? So he knows it's just like this kind of meme. So in that sense, I think he just laughs it off and then like tries to like say something back, right? Like, "Oh, but Jankos can play Sejuani," Like, that's basically how he takes it. I think if people actually have problems, like if let's say I don't actually know, but I could imagine if it starts getting like personal or someone just takes it too far, then he for sure like has a problem with it. I think he is good at taking it though. and it's not like something he has. I mean, he hasn't talked to me at least about like.
Okay.
Oh,
it's not deeply affected him then. Fair enough. No. Oh, the question I was going to ask before I forgot is why I asked if you'd been to NA. Is I can't remember who it was. I'm pretty sure it's someone we had on this show. I think it was. I might be thinking of Feathervan instead. Actually, when I had him on Elite, maybe it was when Feathervan came on this show a couple of weeks ago. He said, "Do you remember this, Dom?" I'm trying to think if it was the right show. Wasn't he the one who said that, like in NA, the mid laners just don't even trade on the wave? They just sit in mid lane basically and just farm up. Am I thinking of the right thing?
I'm not sure. I remember Jizuke. Like that's just a fair criticism, though. Even if he said it or not. Like,
yeah, you just nailed it. The reason I'm bringing it up is because Jizuke himself in an interview, because he's just gone NA, said the same thing basically. Which is why, by the way, I did it as a joke on Twitter. But that's the reason why to him he thought Bjergsen and Froggen were the best mid laners, even though it seems weird to say that now. Because to him, he just thought they actually understood those concepts of laning. Like, have you ever experienced this? Like, is it true that in NA they just don't like the mid laner just sits there like losing matchups, still just farm up?
I mean, I think. I obviously I only played like 1 week of, so I think I didn't even make it to master. I was just like Diamond 1.
Oh, fair enough.
This was like what I made it. But my experience was obviously like it was a lot of fun. I felt like I had so many. Back then, Soy was really OP, playing that a lot, and you could just get kills everywhere. So it was like a lot of fun to play actually. Although, I mean, obviously the ping is worse, but for me that wasn't actually as big of a downside as people made it out to be. Okay. But that could also just be that I only played for a week. Maybe if you start playing it for a month, for a year, right? And I was also just like, okay, I'm just here for a week, then I'll go back to lower ping solo queue. So yeah, not sure.
I think it was weird for us because the servers like weren't always like the ping wasn't always this big of a problem. So like when I was a pro in like season like from seasons 1 to 5, everyone moved to the West Coast and the server was on the West Coast, so everyone just played for like with like 20-30 ping. And then one day randomly in season 5, they're like, just kidding, we're moving into Chicago. And then you just go from 30 to 70 ping one day, and it just feels like you can't even play your champion anymore. Like, there was so many like, I actually went back and I looked, and season 1 to 5, every single season, Lee Sin was my most played. Season 6, Rek'Sai is my most played every single season after that. So, I mean, it's just a situation where it just feels worse. And I guess for me, the problem was, once they changed the servers, is that you play on 3 different pings as a pro player. So you play on 70 ping, or I'm not sure if they moved the tournament server, but at least this is my experience. You play on 70 ping in solo queue, you play on 30 ping when you're scrimming, and then you play on like 0 ping at LCS or like 8 ping on LCS.
Wait a minute, why would it be 30 ping on the tournament realm? Where was the tournament server?
I think the tournament server was like in Seattle or something.
Even that wasn't in
or
LA.
Oregon.
What?
Yeah, or Oregon. It was, yeah, so you played on 3 different pings.
It's one of the weirdest companies I've ever seen, man. I don't understand half the shit they do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so it just felt weird. Like, there was some times where you'd play solo queue and you just, like, lose confidence in yourself. You're like, fuck, am I just, like, bad now? Like, what happened? I was playing fine in scrims. And, you know, I guess playing on multiple different pings is what just, like, rattles you after a while.
For sure, yeah. I think that's a fair point. Like, I think, honestly, if I just, like, I don't know if you said 60 or 70 ping, but if I had to play with 70 ping every game...
Yeah. I play with 74. I play with 74 consistent.
It'll be like really demotivating, I could imagine. Like I haven't actually played with it because I always had like good ping. Like in Denmark when I was playing, I had good ping. I've only had that 1 week of playing, and it didn't feel bad, right? But I could just imagine playing with it like every day. And the exact same thing you said, right? Because I mean, obviously sometimes I like, sometimes it's like really high ping, like 200 ping or something if something is wrong, right? But then at least I'm like, okay, I'm ending, but it's because of the ping. But like at one point when it's like 70 every day, you're like, wait, so should I not take this trade or what, did I just lag or what? Like it gets too hard, I think, like when it's always like every single day.
Yeah.
You know, that's something I never thought about, Dom, but people don't factor that in as well. That when a Korean goes to LCS, not only is the actual quality of the practice worse, but the ping's going to be ridiculous. Like if they're like, I bet when Bang arrived in NA from 9 ping in Korea and was on 70, I can't even imagine what that's like.
There was a famous article where Faker went to Tallahassee for MSI. I think it was season 5, and he was saying that like 30 ping felt unplayable. Like 32 ping or whatever it was, he's like, yeah, man, it feels really hard to play. I'm playing with 4 times the ping that I'm used to. Like it just feels like it's not even the game anymore. So that's definitely an issue. I mean, I guess so. When we were talking about grabs, there was one thing I wanted to ask you based off a conversation that I had with him before the season, which was kind of like this idea that you and Perks would both. The goal was that you and Perks could both play both roles equally. So that based on game or based on champion, you guys could swap potentially. So like, do you think that that's a thing? Like, we haven't seen it yet, obviously.
Why does it never happen? Like, surely there's got to be at least one case where the draft meant that you could have swapped.
Wait, so I mean, basically, how we do it right now? It's just
no. Why don't you swap though? Is what we're saying.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. So basically, why we haven't swapped like so far is that I just re-roll to AD carry. So if I want to have any chance,
I like it.
If I want to have any chance of being strong, then like good at it, then I will have to practice it, right? So every single time we would swap around, it would like make me worse at AD carry. Basically, I would be at like a worse spot right now than if I just focus on AD carry. And then hopefully, when I get like at a point where I feel confident enough to do this kind of thing, where I get less practice essentially than every other AD carry, then we can start testing those things. And if it works out for us, then obviously we will start doing it on stage, right?
Yeah. I've found out what the obvious answer is. I've got the solution for all you guys. I'm going to take your like social media strategy and the theme of the team, and I'm going to apply it to this problem. And I've got the solution for you. At the beginning of every G2 game, whatever the fan sign says, like Cap should play mid, that's who plays mid, and then we go. You just do the draft that way.
Completely unpredictable.
That fits the G2 methodology, I believe. Yeah. And how could the other team predict?
That was
what they're going to do.
What if the enemy team starts like sending fans to the crowd?
That would be the next plan, yeah. The espionage.
I mean, I guess it probably wouldn't matter at this point. I mean, you guys seem like a decently clear number one after beating Fnatic in Origin, right? So.
Yeah, I mean that's also what I thought when we were 6-0 or 7, something like that.
Yeah.
But I think for sure we are strong. Like I think for sure we're strong when we really want to be strong, right? But the problem is also like once we just can't slow down, right? Because obviously the teams in Europe are also super strong. So if we have a bad week of practice or we don't give it our all in whatever we do, then they will not just catch up to us. Like they will be like really far ahead, and suddenly I'll be 0-9, you know. So
0-9. I mean, at least there you get a record, you know. Like you've died the most times in 15 minutes out of any player that's ever played LCS. How does that make you feel?
Well, I'm willing to bet it's going to be many years before a player in the number one team goes 0-9 on affiliate.
Yeah, no, I mean I respect.
That record might stand for years. Man.
No, but the thing about that makes me respect Caps is like most players like after their 5th or 6th deaths would be like, oh, okay, I'm really into. I'm just going to play safe as fuck. Like this.
I'll tell you a story.
This is ridiculous, you know?
Basically, Caps as a player fits the mentality of the now sadly deceased Kobe Bryant, right? Because there's a really famous story where when he was injured that season, in the off season of like 2013, when he was injured, right, was when he made that documentary, if you've ever seen it, called Kobe Bryant's Muse, which is like about his injury recovery process and what drove him as a player. And when he was making this documentary, right, he was going to some of the games with the guy who was going to direct it to kind of like give him an insight as to how he thinks about the game. And when they were at a game, right, they were watching a game of the Brooklyn Nets back when Deron Williams used to be their point guard, who was like a really good scoring point guard. And what happened was Deron Williams started the game, but he started it really badly. Like he missed his first, I think it was his first 8 shots. So because he was a point guard, because he missed the first 8 shots, he just passed after that and didn't take any more shots and sort of ended like, I'm going to guess, like 2 for 10 or something, And Kobe Bryant supposedly turned to this director guy and told him, like, see, that's why that'll never happen to me, because I'll never go 0-8. Because if I go 0-8, I'm going either like, a joke would be, I don't know, 12 for 8, or I'm going like 0 for 30. Yeah. And like that was his philosophy, though, because it was a pretty sick philosophy. Because the idea is like, I'm not just going to die and then give up. It's like I'm either going to turn it around or I'm going to mega fucking in. So you've got to relate to some of that, Caps. That feels like that's your vibe there.
Caps is the Kobe Bryant of LCS. Let's go.
Yeah, that's a fair one. I think. I mean, to be fair, I was like a bit, because I think it was actually like also the record. I guess it was when I was 0-7 that I really looked and I was like, wait, it's like 15 minutes into the game. I'm 0-7. I was like actually like a bit shocked. I was like, okay, that's like, I might get banned, like, this is like I told you, and I'm like, okay, I'll get a Reddit thread after this one. So yeah, you have to slow it down a little bit. And luckily, I guess luckily we didn't win the game, so that wasn't
luckily we lost the game.
Well, at least he didn't go 0-10 is what he's saying. Luckily, it could have got worse. By the way, that alone tells you right there that this guy used to be a mid laner and used to just be able to come back in the game. Because he's going like, yeah, then I sort of like checked the scoreboard. Is that me? Am I 0-7 right now? Like, 7 deaths is AD carry. Like, each one should be like a momentous occasion. Like, oh, shit, I better be really careful next time. He's like, fuck, I'm 0-5 now. I'll probably better slow down a little bit, actually.
Yeah, I would actually like to go back in that game and count how many times Caps recalled as opposed to died in the first 15 minutes to like base. Like I would love to just see just how many times it was just pure just int. All right, nice. Like buying a fucking extra Doran's blade, going back to lane, int again. I guess I get tier 1 boots. Like I would love to just see that.
Honestly, I don't actually remember any bases, but if I died that often, that there wasn't like a lot of room for bases.
No, it's really too. Exactly. Yeah. You get the free base. So
I just feel bad for like the next Aphelios because like obviously someone has to beat this record, and I don't think, as you said, like it probably won't happen. So that's why I have to make it happen myself. So
his own record.
I'll have to pick one Aphelios. I have to pick one Aphelios on enemy team and just like really focus him. You know, like I have to pull out my cheese picks and just make sure he beats it.
Yeah, makes sense. I mean, we haven't seen that many cheese picks out of you, right? Like, I can't even remember that many games where you're playing like weird stuff this entire split.
I think Talia was the only thing that I played that was like not an AD carry basically. Everything else was just like Senna, Aphelios, MF, some Astral. Yeah.
What's your life? I guess since we talked about Talia, I just wanted to get what's your opinion on Pantheon jungle? Do you just think it's broken? I've been thinking that this champion is just like giga broken in the jungle, but NA doesn't like it as much as you guys in Europe. Like, what's your interpretation of Pantheon?
So I think it's pretty strong. I think whenever Yankas has it feels like a pretty good game. So I'm not sure. We didn't do like I don't know how many played like on other teams. It doesn't actually seem like. I mean, maybe I'm wrong here, but it doesn't actually seem like that many, just judging from like scrims and stuff.
It doesn't get into the games that often. I know I've seen Southmade play it on stream,
but there's a higher prevalence of Pantheon because there's a decent amount of bans, at least in Europe. I mean, we've seen a couple like flexes. Like Blippo played it top, Mickey's played it a few times mid.
Yeah, exactly. So it's in other lanes I've seen like mainly. So that's why I feel like I don't know how strong it actually is, but whenever Yankas has it feels like really, really strong. So it's probably a strong champion, yeah.
Yeah, good.
But also, I mean, obviously, like when we played it as well, I think we played it once, right? When it was like Talia was like the dream because obviously Sventon is super strong in the early levels, so we can just kind of abuse them bot side. And
that
was go on.
You're talking about the cheese picks, and also Syndra hasn't actually been open yet, so I'm not really sure what's up.
Would you pick it if it's open? You gonna go for it?
Syndra Pike?
We might pick it. I would just like ask any LEC team out there to just like try leaving it open, you know, like we just fucking try. Maybe I'll pick it, maybe I won't, but like right now, and it's also just getting boring, yeah, because you know I guess FPX kind of just banned Syndra every game as well, so that they found out the triggers to beat us, but like it doesn't work for every team, you know. FPX is also like pretty good besides that.
Yeah, no, makes sense. I mean, I was actually really surprised to see Sven pull out the Syndra in NA this last week. Played Syndra Pike, where that just normally when I think of Sven, I just think of him as just like the staple AD carry player, you know, where it's just like he just wants to have a strong AD carry every game rather than pulling out like things like mages in the bot lane. But I mean, it seems like Syndra is just still like just a ridiculous champion in general. Like when a team plays Syndra well, it just seems like you can just pick it in the first 3 before the second ban phase. Throw it mid.
When Bjergsen played it the other day, he was fucking sick on it. I mean, obviously that's like famously one of his signature champions. He was so insanely good. Like the stuns, he was just straight fire.
Yeah, Bjergsen's an insane Syndra. Like a team just have to ban it versus TSM. It has to be a ban.
I think like on Sven playing Syndra, I think especially when you go like super far, like I guess they were 11-0 or something like this.
They were 12-1.
Like a lot of 12-1. Okay, but basically they have a lot of time to experiment in that sense because like you start winning every game, then you don't just like keep playing the same thing. Like you try out different things. Okay, this works. Let's try out something different. Just so that once people actually figure out how to counter the thing you're doing, you have something else as well, right?
Yeah.
So I think that's like probably a big reason as to why he's. Yeah,
it was such an aggressive draft too because that game they had Pantheon jungle with Talia mid, so they had Pantheon Talia, and then they played Syndra Pike bot lane. Just like level 6, you just 4-man dive the bot lane. It just looks like the most. Like, I don't know, it just looks like a type of gank where the bot lane just wants to FF immediately afterwards. It's like, all right, well, I guess we're just outclassed mid-jungle. Like, nothing we can do. So.
By the way, I like the way, if you look at the way the split was going, right, when everyone heard about the role swap, the first thing logically that you would think is, right, well, it should be way more competitive with G2 now because they're like learning the new roles again. The other team should. Then they were just winning all the first games. They were like, what, like 8-0 or something.
6-0.
Then they had that 1 week where they lost to Schalke and everyone was like, ooh, there's a chance now. Then all the other teams got confident, like Misfits was talking shit, like Fnatic thought they were going to be the best. And then it's like, right, well, finally, there might be competition. And then this last week, they just beat Fnatic and Origin anyway. So it's like, right, well, they're just back to being the best. Here's the part no one thought about, Dom. I never even thought about it myself because it seemed so implausible that doing this role swap, we would still be the best team. Is if they actually do win this spring split with a role swap, that just actually destroys the confidence of all the other teams even more. Because it's like, if you can't even beat when they role swap, like, what chance do you have?
I mean, they did it last year. Like, I think the thing I wanted to ask you about is how, like, what's your perception of the other teams in Europe? Like, obviously, it still looks like G2 is the best. The other team that a lot of people really hate their playstyle, but is always doing pretty well, is Origin. So what do you feel about like Origin, Fnatic? Like, do you think that there's a top 3 and bottom 3? We talked to Fabivin last split, and out of like the 6 teams that should be making playoffs, he kind of sees it as like the Origin, Fnatic, G2 are a level above like the rookie teams, Misfits, Mad Lions, and
Rogue,
and then like XL is kind of there, but not really. Do you have that same breakdown? Is there something that people are missing about Origin that makes them like really strong, or is G2 just still clearly the best?
I mean, I think so. This is a bit weird, but it feels like, I mean, it for sure feels like right now. It feels like you mentioned like Origin, Fnatic, and G2, but even Rogue, Mad Lions, and Misfits, like they also feel like really strong teams right now. It doesn't feel like if you play like a bottom half, or like, I mean, I guess this was like top half, but even if you play like not like Fnatic, basically it's a free win. You still have to like play really well. And I'm not sure if that's just like a regular season thing, because I feel like maybe we have seen that before. And going into regular like playoffs, a lot of teams start showing like their real weaknesses. In the best of fives, they show, and in the like current meta of the best of fives, they start showing like specific weaknesses that we usually exploit. But I think maybe a big part of it is also just like, I'm not sure. It just feels like the teams right now we're playing against are actually strong. It's not like any of them are free wins.
Yeah. How do you feel like the meta might affect them going into playoffs? Because obviously it seems like, with Cinderhulk buffs or like the Bomby Cinder buffs, a bigger opportunity to play like standard front to back, like strong, just those types of comps, which normally like rookie teams could potentially struggle with. I mean, it seems like Mad Lions, they prefer things like Lee Sin. When you look at Razork from Misfits, it's like he seems like the Echo Lee Sin type guy where he just wants to be making plays. Do you think that they're going to struggle to adapt to that like front to back play style, or kind of like the more classic tanks are coming? I guess.
I think that's for sure.
Meta.
It's for sure like what the rookie teams will struggle with the most, right? Is like the meta shifts. I think us and Fnatic have been through so many different metas now that we might be stronger at certain metas, but overall we're just always going to be one of the top teams. But it feels like the rookie teams, they have their style of playing, and they found out, okay, this works for us. But as soon as some of those things get nerfed or something else becomes meta, they have nothing else to rely on. They don't have like the last year to think, oh, back then I just played this champion. They have nothing else really. So for sure, I think that every single patch basically nerfs rookie teams in that sense. And also, especially going into best of fives, where it's a lot more practice and it's a lot less play time. So you can, if you're like a rookie and you don't have any like as much past experience on stage, you can start doubting yourself a lot more. Or you can get overconfident from something in scrims. Maybe you're doing really well at something in scrims, but we might have like experience with other champions that like do really well in scrims, and we're like, okay, but we have to watch out for this one because usually on stage it doesn't do as good. This right now they're getting like every week 2 games to practice and say like, oh, this thing works, this thing doesn't. If they lose a game, it doesn't matter much. If they go into playoffs with saying like, oh, we really want to get this champion, and then suddenly it doesn't work, they might just be out of playoffs,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I can definitely see that. Is there something that like, obviously you don't have to give the fucking G2 secrets, but is there a certain way that you guys practice to like ensure that you guys are comfortable on a variety of comps? Like, because I remember like when I played, like there was times where we would play like our strong comps, and once we felt like we had them down, we'd start to like ditch them a little bit more. But if we ever had a bad game on them, like in scrims, it'd be like, oh shit, maybe we like need to like play more of it to just like make sure that it's that we're stable on like our Maokai top whatever comps were available back then, your Orin comps or whatever. Now do you feel like you guys like are better at judging your skill on comps? Like is it kind of like you're able to jump around and like develop a lot of different things before a playoff series, or like how does that normally go for you guys?
Yeah, I mean, for sure, if like we're super comfortable on certain things, we don't want to practice it as much. Like obviously it also comes down to things like, for example, the Sunder, right? I don't even know how many Sunder games I've had like in scrims and solo queue just because everyone's banning it. Like if someone wants to leave it open, then I mean I can say like I haven't practiced a lot. Leave it open. I would like to see how it works out. So obviously I'm not practicing that all the time because they want to ban it. And the same thing goes for stuff like if we're really comfortable on a team comp, we're not gonna spam practice it anymore. But I think we're not at the same time. I'm not sure if I misunderstood, but we're not like preparing a comp that might be meta at some point. It's not like we're like trying to play different compositions just to practice that, because I don't think we need to. I feel like at this point we've all played so many years and so many different comps that we've been through it all. And while we might not be good at everything right now, all it takes is like a day, 2 days, 3 days. Like we just need to practice it again, and we will be back at front to back comp or 1v1, like whatever kind of composition we play. Right, we should be able to pull off.
I think that's actually one of the things that makes G2 quite unusual. It's one thing when they were winning, because like he said with Cloud9, if you're like 11-0 or whatever, like, yeah, you will just try something out because you never lose. Like you think, fuck it, I can even take one loss. But if you look at G2 throughout their whole history, like so many times when they do an unusual pick, like what was the pick, the Janna pick or whatever, where Wunder said, like, I think he said something like he'd almost never played it, and he played it in a couple of scrims, then they did it on stage. Like that is a very different philosophy. I know, like, for example, Asian teams, Koreans infamously, they want to play on stage, ideally, whatever they practice the most in the scrims, because they want to be like feel prepared and they know everything that can happen and how do it. How does your team just have this, like, it doesn't seem like it bothers people that they haven't played the champion that much. That doesn't seem to negatively affect the game.
I think, so it's a good question, like why we're really open-minded in that sense, right? And I think probably the main thing is that everyone was aware of what we were going into with our team, right? And we were doing so good in the beginning, like right from the get-go beginning, so everyone gets like super high confidence in each other. Like even looking at stuff like the final of LEC, our first final, right? At that time, we won anything, so we won like it was not like we had, we won all these splits beforehand. We still did something like the funnel comp, which I don't know how many times we played in scrims, but it was like for sure less than like 3 or 4 times, which is still like a decent amount, right? But it's like,
to even have the balls to pull that out in a final is crazy, though.
Exactly,
you don't look
like,
back and think that is
different way. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean,
like in a world where you lost that game, you'd really think twice, right?
Yeah, exactly. Like if we lost this kind of game, right? If we lost that kind of game, if we lost sort of like, let's say the Janna top game, or like we lose these kind of things, then obviously our confidence goes lower, right? It just comes out like we're trying new things and they have success, so we want to keep doing that. And obviously it's not like, oh, we lose one game with a champion, then now we don't want to do it. But it has to be a balance, right? Let's say we every single week we are playing something completely random and troll, and it always loses, then I mean obviously fast we will stop doing it, right?
Yeah. No, I mean,
that's why I always thought, by the way, since you referenced earlier, Dom, when Perks did the LeBlanc game against RNG at Worlds in Season 8, I also think one of the most gangster moves ever was when they were playing against SKT at MSI. And in like, I think it was in Game 5. Was it Game 4 or Game 5?
The Pike top?
When you had a Pike top, well, that was a different one. I mean, I'm talking about when he picked like Syndra in the bot lane. But like, even though he was a mid laner, yes, and he used to play Syndra, like to pull it out in that moment though, is like, you have to have big balls to do that.
Yeah.
And not because that's a shit on the fact that he's playing Syndra. That wasn't intentional. That was purely coincidence. Yeah,
I mean, for sure. I think we hadn't.
I bet there's no way SKT thought that was possible because you just would think he'd do a safe draft.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing, right? So I think like really strong. That's why people are banning it now. But back then we didn't really play it, and we had like this kind of like, I don't know, at some point if it's a meme or anything, saying like, oh, we're for Worlds, right? So they're saying all these champions for Worlds, and soon as one of the champions, we're not gonna play in scrims because we don't want to show anyone, and we're just gonna save it. And then suddenly Game 5, Perks felt super confident that if he got Syndra, it would be like a free win, and it really fit the draft as well. So we just went for it, and we won the game. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it was also. I'm pretty sure he got level 2 kill. Like they got a level 2 kill in that lane.
Really early they were wrecking him. Yeah,
I think so. Yeah.
Because I always thought that series, like, since you guys have beaten SKT so many times, I always thought one of the reasons why is, like, your style is almost the perfect to go against the Korean style, where they like to play so safe and no, it's like, what people don't understand is, when Koreans play each other, the reason some of the games look boring in LCK is because it's like the team that loses almost still, like, plays by the rules and just does the correct thing. But it makes it easy to predict if you're the team that's in the lead. SKT looked, when they played you guys both times, like, they had no clue what the fuck was going on. Like, what is this shit? Like that was a nightmare scenario for them. I bet they hate playing you guys.
Yeah, I mean, I think we have always preferred like playing Korean teams as opposed to like Chinese teams in that sense, because Korean teams usually have like a slower early games, and I think our biggest weakness is probably like our early games. I think whenever we go like mid game, we have so many years on everyone on our teams. Everyone to do, and everyone has like these crazy ideas, you know, like the amount of times you have seen us backdoor people, the amount of times you have seen us cheese people. We just have all the strats, like all the Fnatic brushes, all the backdoors, like we have all the Mythy insane knowledge. We have all like the knowledge from it. Basically, like, all the top players, or like most of the top players, is more fair to say, have played an ILG2 and Fnatic, and at some point, some of us have played with, you know. So basically, I mean, I think actually just all teams as well, because like even like, let's say Splice, when they were super strong and they got second place, or H2K when they made Worlds, we have Yankos, we have Miki and Wunder. So our team just has so much knowledge from all these players that we are just kind of unstoppable in the mid late game parts of the game.
Why are you so bad in the early though? Because with your team, in theory, you should have like winning lanes every game in theory.
It's true, yeah. It's a good question. I think.
It's just jungle diff every game, or what?
And you're the best jungler in theory. Yeah, what excuse do you have?
Maybe it's just like because I'm 0-9, so it's like.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. I mean, see, the way you talk about it is just like, oh, you guys have so much experience, and that's like why your teams end up being so good. But it's crazy to me because when we see players in NA that have potentially even more experience than you guys that have been playing for longer, we don't have. It doesn't seem like we have the same level of creativity. So what gives you like the balls, I guess, to go with these like crazy calls? Like, is it just you guys trust in each other, or like how does that end up like manifesting in game? Because yeah, like I said, a lot of our players are just afraid. Like it seems like we're always like, oh, that sounds crazy risky, let's just not do it. Like that's kind of our mentality.
I mean, it's also what's interesting is it's unique to this specific G2 though. It's not like the Perks teams with G2 before were doing this all the time with Mythy, etc. It's not like Caps' team did in Fnatic, so it's very specific to this group for some reason, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I think it comes back to us just being like super confident in each other, and we're all like open-minded to, okay, someone does make a crazy call, we'll just follow it. And I mean, just talking from like my own point of view, obviously I played with like Soas and Reckless, and the amount of like cheeses and tricks they had that I just like copy, paste. It's like really high, right? And I have the confidence to pull it out because times that I just rely on those kind of things, tricks in mid game, right? And obviously all of my teammates trust if I do something crazy that I will that it will work out, or it will have like at least a good chance of working out. And the same thing goes for me trusting all of them. If they want to do like a backdoor, if they want to like do like a gank or like sitting in a brush or whatever they want to do, it will probably work out. And I think it just comes from trust. Everyone is fine with like everyone's not afraid of losing. Basically, everyone is. It's not that we're fine with losing, but we're just like we're okay with taking the risk because we know that's the highest chance of us winning, basically.
Yeah, that's one thing, Dom, you got to give Soaz credit for. He is one of the best top laners I've ever seen, where if his team's losing the game, he will just try some crazy-ass shit. But that might win you the game. It might actually somehow turn it all around. Like, you've done it so many times.
No, I really like that mentality, because I feel like one thing that at least from what you've said, it seems like you guys do a really good job of like learning from players and like being able to identify like what they're good at, what they're bad at. Even if you're able to play with somebody who like Wonder, obviously at this point would just be considered a like overall just better top laner than Soaz, you can still like learn things from each other, where I feel like one thing that other teams struggle with is if they have a player that they end up like losing with, or like they end up upgrading players, they kind of just view it as like, oh well, this guy is worse, so everything he does is worse. Like they're not able to like pick out the good things and apply it to their own game. So that was something that Perk said similarly with like Mythy, how much he learned from Mythy, that even like when Mythy came over here, he wasn't like the best player anymore, and now he's moved on to coaching. Still being able to learn from like every player you played with, and kind of like taking those experiences in and making yourself better as a result is just, definitely a good way to look at it. And I wish that other teams would do that more, because it seems like having like the negative mindset of, oh, this guy is bad, like this guy, this guy into this final, he's bad, like forget everything.
It's not even like the bad things as well, like the good things only, right? Like you can take so many bad things that let's say a former teammate did, or a teammate I have right now does, and you can just not do them, right? And so you just look at your teammates, you're like, oh, they do all these good things, well, I'll take all those, and you're like, but there are all these bad things. Okay, I think I will not do that, and you basically become so much stronger player. And it's just in game, in like just also just like as people, like you obviously, I'm still a young guy, I would say, and I was like super young when I joined, and everyone I've worked with so far in esports has influenced how I am as a person, like in crazy ways, right? Because of the same thing. If someone does something that I'm like, okay, that makes a lot of sense why they do this, then I will also try to do the same thing. And if some people don't do things that I disagree with, I would also try to avoid that.
See, that makes perfect sense, Dom, what he says, because that is in fact what G2 did. What they did was they said, right, well, we'll look at Fnatic, like they're winning splits, they're going to Worlds Final. We'll take what's good, Caps, and then we'll just leave like Buepo and the other. You don't have to take everything, and then it worked out. So they've like, it checks out. What he's saying does check out.
I think Whip was a beast. So I guess one thing I was going to ask Caps is, I mean, since you've learned from people around you, have you ever thought about adapting your father's emoji usage? Because
he is wild on social media, man.
Your dad is crazy with the emoji usage. I mean, just when I announced you coming on this show, I mean, he sent me a banger of a tweet. So like,
he spams emojis like someone who's like the first week into being in love. Like he goes nuts with that shit.
He loves
A lot of emotion, though. A lot of emotion.
Yeah, he loves his emojis, and it's always like it always feels like a bit different. Like there always is some emotion. So I'm not even sure exactly how he
comes up
how he chooses the emojis.
Yeah,
but they are for sure like that's for sure. Like I can just say that there's like a lot. No, it's not like even like he's just spamming it. So
yeah, no, I like seeing it. I mean, I like seeing like players who their parents like are really into what they're doing. You know, so
yeah,
exactly. And unlike that story I told about Featherman on that episode, Caps' dad's just really wholesome. It's just a really wholesome guy.
Yeah,
you know, the PG version.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. Did you have you heard of the Fabivens father, like the famous Fabivens father tweet?
You never seen the infamous tweet he did? His dad had a Twitter account and just one time tweeted out of nowhere, like something like, "Hey Fabivin, you're the best thing to ever come out of my big dick." Just did a tweet, yeah, for real. It's like Fabivin's dad was like the name or so, like Peter, or whatever, you know, some Dutch name. That's pretty wild.
I think I'll stick with the emojis.
Exactly.
Just send a heart. It's easier.
Well, I mean, you said he can take the good things that his father does, the bad thing.
Everyone who's watching this show right now, tweet an emoji heart of different shapes and colours to Caps' dad. Just do it. He won't know why, but he'll just brighten his day up when he sees all the love that he's going to get today. Everyone do it now.
I mean, I believe that he's probably watching this episode. I mean, he said that he was excited for it, so you know. Probably would like to see what his son was going to say.
Mate, he actually does. He doesn't even do it like, you know, some parents just pretend to follow what their kids are doing, like put in like the. He actually does legit. Like I've seen times where when I've tweeted stuff about G2, he'll do the same shit. He'll be like you know, like glasses, like big eyes, looking like the fucking with like. Yeah. And it's like I'm trying to read like a new language, like hieroglyphics, and like, what's he trying to say to me here? Like,
it's true. Yeah. I mean, you always have to like decipher exactly what he means.
Exactly.
But there's always like a meaning behind, so you have to get it. Obviously, yeah, I mean, he's always supported me. I mean, all my parents and my family have, as long as like it made me happy. And I think going back to Turkey, this was like the first time that he went anywhere like with me for. I guess we also went to like a LAN, but basically this was the first time I had with like a huge following, right, in TCL. And we played the final, and there was like more than 10K people watching in the studio, and he saw all these people just like screaming for 3 hours or whatnot, like, "Oh, go win the game, Dark Passage," you know, all these kind of things. And he just realized how much passion there is, you know, and he loved it, and he just kind of stayed within that scene, and he kept coming to like all these tournaments and seeing all the fans, and I think it just makes him super happy. And obviously, I appreciate him being there as well a lot. So
sure,
it's just a good case, I guess.
Was it hard to convince him to like let you play in Turkey the first time? Because I feel like that would be kind of like your 16-year-old kid, you're going to a foreign country. Obviously, Turkey is not known to be as safe as somewhere like Denmark. So like, was that a difficult thing?
I think so. So basically, how it happened was that Elvin, who was on Dark Passage, wrote to me, "Hey, do you want to join our team? We can get you a flight ticket tomorrow, you know." And I went to my parents and said like, "Hey, so I'm kind of going to Turkey tomorrow," and they were like, "Wait, what?" That's like, it was just so random for them, you know. It was just like completely out of nowhere with no time to actually think about it or whatever. And it was like for a long time as well. So they were for sure like really. They were. I mean, I don't want to say they were unhappy with it, but they were just very concerned about me. Mm-hmm. Exactly, because they were like, "Oh, what? You're going like." I've been in Denmark my whole life. Maybe like once I've been to Sweden, you know, or we have been to a family vacation or something like this. But this was like a full month, and it would be. I mean, I guess initially it was going to be alone, and it was like 1 day preparation, so there was like not a lot of thought going into it in that sense. But my parents ended up agreeing when they saw that I really wanted to go, and it was something that meant a lot to me. But my dad was obviously the condition that he could go with me as well to make sure I was safe. And I mean, obviously at the time I was 16, so I think he didn't trust me at all. Just like, I mean, flying and all these kind of things, which I think is a fair point.
Definitely,
I think it's something that I mean, okay, I can like take a plane now, but it's still something that I like even now it still makes sense, you know.
No, here's the thing, mate. I know when people... This is one of the problems with youth, is that when you're young, because you don't yet know what it will be like to feel like an actual adult, you always think, actually, earlier than when you were, like, properly grown up, like, I'm fine, I'm finished already. Because I used to think the same thing. Like, I think I went to my first, like, really big esports event when I was, like, maybe like 17, 18. And that was in America. And I'd never flown before. I'd never been anywhere. And when I look back now, I even think like, why the fuck did my parents let me do it? Because like, for example, when I went there, I think I went with like exactly the amount of money I needed. So for like anything had gone wrong, this is before cell phones as well. So there's no way I was like calling it. Well, like I couldn't like, that's just like basically like waving goodbye to someone like, yeah, see you go around halfway around the world, see if you can get back though and come back like, how would you even know if anything went
Jesus
wrong?
Christ, Thorn, man, you're fucking old. Like, what are you talking about before cell phones? Like what?
It's all right, mate.
Weren't cell phones invented in like 94 or something? Like, come on, man.
Here's the thing. You have to realize people only had like the old cell phones that we could only call on. Like kids didn't have them. I'm on about like 2001 or something. So this is where like only businessmen had a cell phone or whatever. Like it definitely didn't have computer like it didn't have Google Maps and stuff. That's actually the thing in the modern day that people do. Like it's impossible if you didn't grow up before Google Maps to understand what trying to get around is like.
Oh yeah, you have to read a real map.
Direction. Yeah, you can even live track where you're going. Like that's actually the biggest change.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
for sure.
Yeah, I dealt with a similar thing because for me, when I went pro,
how old were you when you started in LCS and became pro?
Well, LCS was like 2 years after I started because I started like the end of season 1, and I was 20 years old. But I was like young for my grade because I like skipped a grade when I was much younger. So I was.
Plus you're a nerd.
Yeah, plus I'm a nerd.
We're all nerds, to be fair.
Yeah, no, I actually was really bad in school.
Everyone who's a nerd, you should take like 3 years off their age because we just wasted 3 years just playing video games instead of like experiencing life and having all like so we're all way younger than we look.
Yeah, no. So I was actually 3.5 years into college. So college in America is 4 years, graduate, whatever. So I was 3.5 years about to graduate, and then I just like told my parents one day, like, yeah, I'm dropping out of college.
Yeah, I'm just so disappointed, Dom. Were they so disappointed?
No, they weren't because I had like I guess like there was obviously concern. They're like, oh, we want to make sure you're doing the right thing. But my mom actually she was a professional ballerina before she went to college, so she ended up going. Okay. So she ended up going to a really good college. So it was Yale Law School to become a lawyer.
Oh, so she didn't mind the fact you might be. I think you just told them you were delaying it. Like, yeah, I'll go back in a couple of years.
Yeah, no, that was
10 years later, still now.
Yep, that was exactly what it was. It was like, hey, I took a break to do something that I love. So she kind of just like framed that into like her ballet career. It's like, oh, it's something they can only do now. Like, right, obviously, once you start getting older in ballet, it's like. You're 25, you're too fucking old, like get off the goddamn stage. Like
it's a good analogy in that sense for gaming, because obviously at this point in time, like, yeah, you should be gaming before you're 30. Like there's not many people who are going to be pros at that. The thing is though, like when you say it like that, that does make it sound ridiculous. Because I remember it was the same thing if you remember with Voyboy, right? Remember the first few years, he was obviously in your team. He used to always say in those interviews, like, yeah, I'll probably go back to like, doctor's school once I finish gaming. Yeah. And I remember Richard Lewis telling me like bullshit, like if you now at the point where you've been a pro gamer for like 3 years and you're getting mad money streaming, he said there's no way that guy's ever going back to doctor. He was right. There's obviously there's no way you're going to go to think about how hard it is to be a doctor and to get through that fucking school. It's a nightmare, right?
I mean, I'm still so all my credits stayed from college. So
what was your subject you were doing?
I was a psychology major. So I got into school. I got into school based off being. Shut the fuck up, Thorn.
But that's basically what you were doing. Like that's basically what that like Cut the Western shit series is. It's you trying to just get into people's brains and like figure out why. It actually is. You've applied it, Dom. All those fucking.
Yeah, maybe I didn't take the most proper route with it, but yeah, like exactly. I got in as a music major to college, but then I just transferred because psychology is just much easier major, just way less course load because I wanted to play League and. Yeah, eventually, like when it ended up going well, they told me I could keep all my credits, so I can just still go back at any point to do 6 months of college and I have a college degree. It's been fucking it's been 9 years. I still haven't done anything with it, so I guess I'm just gonna be fucking high school educated as my max level of education for the rest of my life.
Next decade.
Yeah, next decade. Well, I mean, we'll see if I make it there with this Corona shit. Who knows?
I think we'll all survive. We'll all be all right.
Yeah, we'll be all right. I mean, we're not in the age
we're not
demographic.
8 years old. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Thorin might have to watch out. The rest of us, me and Cats will be fine.
I've got a while yet, but Here's the thing: the virus wouldn't be able to attack something as toxic as me. I would just naturally fight it off. It would, it would go to the next person. I might be a carrier. It might just chop for me and the next person, but I'll be fine. Don't worry. Nothing can get to me, boys.
Mm-hmm. So I guess a player I wanted to bring up, like jumping back to like actual topics, for a second, would be, we got to bring it up because it's Thorin's boy, is Froggen.
Here we go.
Yeah, so
come on.
So Froggen, I've been pretty critical of him this split. I think I have him as like the 6th best mid laner in the league, 7th best mid laner, like somewhere around there. I don't know if you've caught any NA games or like if you you know, if you've watched
Not that
Froggen,
many.
well, if you watch
Okay,
Froggen in the last couple of years, it's the same type of style. Like, how do you value that level of like that type of player? Obviously, more safe control mages, that type of stuff.
Yeah, I mean, so obviously Froggen was one of the Danish midlaners that I was like that I looked up to a lot when I was like before I went pro, right? So I've always looked up to Froggen in that sense. He always has like a lot of funny moments. I've looked at. I always loved the clip where he was, and then there was like the LeBlanc and the LeBlanc.
Yeah.
And I think, I mean, now I haven't obviously watched him for a while. Like the one when I was actually watching him was like in the old seasons, you know.
Okay.
But I can assume, just assuming he plays the same as he used to, then
Similar. Yep.
Yeah, I mean, you know, it's just like one way of playing the game, I guess. It's obviously very different than the way I play the game.
Feels like the opposite to your style of play, right?
Literally the opposite.
Exactly, yeah. So if it works, it works. If it doesn't work, it doesn't work. You know, I think a lot of things can tie into if it works or not. The main thing is obviously teammates, like what kind of team he has, and if a team can capitalize on him just like farming up, or like can basically make him go through like the early games without like getting, let's say, any mid is like maybe roaming a lot, and meanwhile he's like farming camps, right? That's like not necessarily like a bad thing. They just have to survive to the point where he will just carry the game, you know. And as it looks right now, I mean, I don't actually know how they're doing, but I mean, you said that you were not skeptical about their play.
Well, I mean, so right now
like,
they're in 9th place. They're 5 wins, 9 losses. Also, your
and nearly all the wins were at the beginning of the split as well. Did you see my camera?
No, it was both your cameras, but now they're both fine.
Maybe it just lagged for a second.
Yeah, it just lagged for a second. I mean, it's just spectrum. It's spectrum
so?
difference every time. That's just what it is.
Didn't know you're on the spectrum, but fair enough, Dom. I had my suspicions over the years. So, here's the question, Caps, is do you think, though, in the modern day, like in Season 10 of League of Legends, should the mid laner be trying to like exploit every possible advantage and snowball the lane and get as many kills as he can? Like, is it a mistake to think you just farm up through the game? Obviously, certain players like to do it, PoEs.
Yeah, that was exactly who I was going to bring up, because that's a player that Caps has played against.
Do you think it's the better style, though, to be aggressive all the time?
I'm not actually sure. I think it depends like so much on what like the meta is, I guess. So right now, I think the meta is fairly aggressive. So in that sense, I would probably for sure prefer if Perks roams bot than if he doesn't, you know. But yeah, I think it just again depends on the team. I think, for example, in like Season 7 and 8, where the team I was on, like Fnatic, when I was playing, like this kind of team where we were just like playing hard through bot, I think it wouldn't have been bad, you know, if like, let's say Froggen was just playing and he was just like farming some camps, just trying to survive. Maybe it would be annoying, like maybe sometimes Reckless wouldn't snowball because like basically what happened back then was like enemy jungle and enemy would just like kill me over and over, right? But
you were the distraction, exactly.
While Reckless was killing a bot over and over, right? So maybe Reckless wouldn't get as head usually, but Froggen probably wouldn't fall as behind either, right? And then it just becomes a thing of like, let's say Reckless and Froggen, can they carry later on? And maybe they could, you know. So I think it just comes back to mainly just like teammates, and not even teammates in that sense, like are your teammates bad or good? On teams in the sense of like, what does your teammate want to do with the game, you know?
Yeah, they've got to fit together.
Yeah, is your whole team just gonna farm? Because then there's like not enough camps for all of you guys to take them in the jungle, right?
Yeah.
Someone needs to do something.
I feel like it does seem to me like more of an outdated style compared to like what we see now. Like we rarely see that like control mage safe style mid laner being really good these days. You know, like they can be serviceable in teams, but they'll never be like the fucking guy. They'll never be like the MVP of a league.
It also depends, right? Because it's also like, I mean, it's different ways of playing, but it's also, I mean, in a way, it's like just mage thing. You obviously want to roam less, and you want to do like more camps. You want to do more, have more lane presence in that sense. And it's not necessarily a bad thing. Like for example, at Worlds, I was playing like a lot of, and someone like Rookie has always been playing a lot of mages. But then again, I would never like think of Rookie and then think like, oh, he's just farming, right? He's like he's really going in there. You know, he's picking the mages, but he's like, he's just making sure that enemy mid is like less useful than him, even in the early game. Like enemy mid can't roam, or else the game is just like over for him, you know.
Oh, I mean, there was definitely that game where he played Orianna into Jensen's Akali that I just thought about when you were talking about this, where it's just he's just going ham in the fucking lane. He's walking past the minion wave and just auto attacking
example. because obviously you think Oriana's like the classic one where if you just want to sit back and just hog the tower, you can just do that. But the way he plays it is fucking amazing. That's one of his best champions.
Yep. And it's also like a good point. And then just to add, it's not like, because I mean, League of Legends is obviously in season 10 now, and it's all about team game, right? And it's not like Froggen could just like copy paste Rookie's play style and it would work for him, because obviously there comes so many things of covering Rookie when he pushes out. It's not like he can just straight and then just like, oh, enemy jungle is here now, then I'm just dead, right? Like that's why League of Legends is such a team game basically, and you basically need to be on the same page. It maybe works that he's farming the camps if his teammates are doing something else meanwhile. Just like it would not work for him to play super aggressive if his teammates are going bot or whatever they're doing. You know, it just has to fit with each other, the pieces, I guess.
I mean, I feel like that team is just super doomed, because even I don't know if you watched this weekend's game, Thorin, the one where Acadian played Lee Sin, but Acadian comes in.
That game is ridiculous.
Yeah, Acadian comes in and it's like, okay, like Grig has been relatively bad in the jungle. I had him like 10th on my tier list, so I was like,
got progressively worse as the split went on.
Yeah, it was always weird. Like he would have like one okay game a week that it felt like would keep his job for a little bit, and and then like eventually they just let Acadian start, and Acadian goes in, he's by far playing like the best player in the game, and they still end up losing the game. So like I don't know if that roster is just doomed at this point.
It's in trouble for sure.
Yeah, I mean, at this point, it's almost impossible for them to make playoffs. They already have 9 losses. They would need to win 3 out of their next 4 games to even have a chance. So,
I think like something like, I mean, I think because I mean, obviously we talk about all sorts of things, right? And I think maybe he was on the show.
You cut out for a second.
Say it again. It cut out a second. Perks said what?
So Perks mentioned it in the show last time as well, where it's like it feels like a lot of NA players play for, as you said, like that job instead of like playing to win, right? And that comes back to what I said before. Obviously, if I'm playing super aggressive and I'm putting myself at like a huge risk. And I don't even just rely on myself. I rely on my teammates, and we need to play as a team like at a really high level. And if you just don't have your faith in like your teammates to reach, like even become that level, and you just want to like, oh, I don't actually care about winning them, I just want to make sure I keep being paid, then of course you would never go for like any aggressive plays. You just farm, you know. We're both 0-0. It was not better mid that one. It was just
I mean,
better team.
when you're on a roster like that, it makes sense, because you know Froggen is not playing for free. Like he's definitely getting a sizable contract, but Huni's contract was leaked, which was $2.3 million. So he's getting $1.15 million a year to run it down on stage. And then you also have Afro, who's rumored to be being paid $800,000. So that team should be theoretically one of the highest paid teams in the league. So to have a result like this where you're just like 9th place, I feel like that has to just be like huge for the organization, and I'd be really surprised if they end up with the same roster going into summer. So yeah, I
mean, for sure it feels like a lot of I mean, I don't know, it just feels like a lot of teams are maybe putting money in the wrong places. I think something that maybe orgs don't think about enough, it's also hard to figure out, but it feels like a player might completely change from one year to another. Like wherever he's like, oh, this year he's gonna really focus on he has different focus points, right? And sometimes the focus point is just not aligned with the team. Like the focus point might be, like as you mentioned, just like he just wants to I mean, as I mentioned, it just wants to look good, or he just wants to like to keep his job, you know. Or he just like, okay, I'm gonna, as we mentioned about talking about Source before, like Source is the kind of guy who, it doesn't matter if he goes 0-10, right? He will just keep going for the plays, and he will make like crazy plays, you know. He will bring back his team, and he just cares that much about winning, you know. He doesn't care about like how people look at him. He doesn't care about all these kind of things, because he just wants to get the win, basically. And it's the same kind of thing that I also feel like I have. And basically, like, actually, just my whole team, like we when we run it down together, you know. We're just fighting for that last chance of maybe getting it back.
Yep, definitely the best way to play the game. I don't know. Yeah, I mean, when you were talking about that, it makes me think of like how is it like being in a U where it feels like you guys are much above the level, and at this point your league is more popular, LEC is getting more viewers. How is it to hear like some of these numbers from like NA come out, like where, you know, the rumor is like Impact's getting paid 1.3 million, you've 1.15 million for Huni, like all these really insane contracts to play at like a worse level than you guys are. Is it like tempting? Is it like, oh shit, like does the money matter? Or is it like for you, oh, I'm like, I just want to be the fucking best, and I'm already getting paid so much that like I
mean, for example, like last year, some people could have made the case. Remember, you were the MVP of the spring split. Someone could have made the case you were the best player in the world, Like if you're at that level and you hear that some guy who actually is worse than you in NA makes more money, that does feel a bit off, like in sports, it's going to be very rare that like the best player for Barcelona makes less than some guy who's like in the 11th team in the Premier League or something. It does, something feels off about that. What do you think about that?
So it's not really something that I care about that much, I guess. I think funny, like I was even talking about it earlier with Dark Passage, the exact same thing, right? I didn't actually if I got paid nothing, I would still have joined Dark Passage, Like I didn't actually care about the money at all. Mm-hmm. And it was the same thing joining Fnatic. It was the same thing joining G2. I just wanted to have the best, I just wanted to prove myself. And then I just wanted the best possibility of proving myself, Like I'm sure if I wanted more money, then there was like a million different teams I could have joined instead of G2 and Fnatic for that sense. Mm-hmm. But I just thought that Fnatic in 2017, this was like the team that I had the best chance of like making a strong debut with. Mm-hmm. And when it came to G2, I just thought our team could be the best. So yeah.
By the way, did you ever get any crazy offers from Asia? Because I've heard that the last few years, especially, there's been more of them where like a Chinese team will bid billions or some. Like I've even heard some crazy ones. Like every now and then a Korean team's done one, but I think that was more like lower ones that wanted to just have like a weird angle. Have you ever had any crazy offers like that?
No, I mean, nothing that I know. I mean, obviously, I've only had one off season, but that off season, I don't think there was any like Asian teams that contacted me.
Okay.
I think most of, I guess basically what happened was just like most of the teams contact Fnatic. Fnatic told me like, oh, these teams are talking, and then I talk with them, right? And I don't think I would necessarily be interested in.
Yeah, I just meant for curiosity's sake, because it's a fun idea, and like the idea that some like some top LPL team tries to buy you just to see what would happen. I mean, obviously, I forgot there. Like, I made the mistake there. Forget I'm in League of Legends where there's all poaching rules and there's only one man, like fucking the guy out of Mission Impossible's Perks. He's the only one who can go under the lasers and get lifted up and then whisper in someone's ear, "You're going to join our team next week," and then go and then they have a dream like, "Oh, I think I had a dream that I want to join G2." To their manager, like, "Oh well, guess we better do that then." So who knows how he gets away with it? I don't know how Perks does any of the things he does. He's just a magician.
Yeah,
do anything. No, he can get away with anything.
No comment.
This guy can steal the crown jewels. He can do anything he needs to. Breaking a Fort Knox.
To be fair, I was like a bit surprised when Fnatic told me that G2 wanted to contact me, because I thought like, at first like I just didn't see Perks actually leaving the team. When then I actually talked with G2, I realized that he wasn't actually leaving the team, right? But
was that a big ego boost, by the way, when Perks told you, like, join the team and I'll swap to AD carry? You can be my mid laner. That'd be pretty fucking sick if someone told you that. Your main rival. Was that a little ego boost?
I guess, yeah. It's for sure. It means a lot. But I also already knew that he respected my play and like respected me because we had talked before. Like basically every time we go to Worlds, like we went to Worlds 2017 and 2018. We talked a lot together because, like you're at Worlds, you just...
Oh, I think he disappeared.
He's died. Wait there a sec.
Hold up.
Right, since he's not back yet, I'll just pretend I know what he was going to say. He goes, if you go to Worlds, obviously you all have to complain together collectively about how
bad the rest of your team is.
And then, exactly.
Yeah.
Right, goes back. Like, what were you saying? You said when you go to Worlds and that cut.
Oh, okay, when I go to Worlds. So basically... Perks is like a super outgoing guy when it comes to like new people, and I'm like kind of the opposite, but in the same sense. Perks would always like go to our team room and just like start talking with.
I told you, Dom. This is amazing.
Yeah.
Keep going. Yeah. I bet he's a friendly guy, isn't he? I bet they're like, oh, that Perks is just the most friendly guy ever. You know what? Hey, I've never talked to you before. Actually, me and him are just going to go for a little walk. He comes back later, like, well, everything fine, right? Yeah. How long's my contract in this team again? Sorry, no reason. Just been talking with a new friend of mine I've met called Gecko, and then he's like, yeah. And then Perks he shows up in your team rooms. He's there in the bubble bath. Like, this guy knows what the fuck he's doing, Dom. I don't know how he's doing it. He's just so next level.
Yeah, he's the one that all the he started all the EU in-houses, which ended up just being like the just breeding ground for all the poaching that happened in EU.
It was like an excuse to poach, basically. You're right. You had that whole Skype group, everything. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, no, I love that Skype group. Yeah, continue.
He's the Godfather.
He would just like come in and we would just talk about like the meta at the tournament, right, and stuff like this, and we would like complain about mid lane life. It was nice to talk with him because he was like the first. In a sense, I didn't talk with other teams, but he was a mid laner, and basically he knew all of my struggles. Okay. Because he was also a mid laner, and every mid laner has the same struggles. it was the same thing when I went to All Stars as well, and with Yusuke, and we were talking a bunch through that All Stars, and it was like it's just so fun to listen to people from other roles because you have like the same thoughts, like why are they doing this? Why are they not doing this? Like why are the other roles? And maybe that's why us mid laners just have like that big like ego in that sense, because we just all have go through the same things.
Yeah. I mean, for my money, mid laners are still the best League of Legends players overall. Like, they just have to do the most in the game. They have the most options available to them, so they have to just be more well-rounded than other players. I mean, normally it's not like junglers have to have, like, mage positioning on certain champions or, like, that type of mindset. So it makes sense that you guys are so easily able to just swap between mid and AD carry. Because I guess AD carry is the easiest role. Do you have that same opinion? That it's just like super easy role.
I mean, it's hard to say, right? Because I didn't really like try other roles in the sense of like a competitive aspect. Personally, I usually queued mid top before I became an AD carry because like always top is the same kind of champions as mid mostly. So I feel like it's the same, most similar to mid in that sense. But yeah, I'm not sure. I think I don't want to be the guy who goes 0-9 and says like AD carry is easy. So
okay, all right.
I just don't like the whole idea of like being easy because I feel like it's always just compared to like who you play against, right? And I mean, so far I don't feel like relatively I don't think I'm better AD carry than I was a mid laner, right? It's not like I don't think, for example, in mid I felt like last year I was the best mid. There was like not really anything to that. In AD carry, it's like, yeah, I mean I can see myself like killing some bot laners for Swindler maybe or some of the other champions, but it's not like I'm super confident.
Do you think Perks was a better bot laner at this point in his progression than you were? Or than you are now, I guess?
It's a good question.
Is it that hard a question? Perks is pretty fucking good, Caps.
Yeah, but at this point, like I think like not taking anything away, I think Perks was playing like completely insane. But I think yeah, it's a hard thing because I don't remember exactly what point week 7 was and how he was playing. But I think because obviously Perks was not playing like his like MSI performance was completely insane. Yes, even his Worlds performance.
He leveled up for sure.
Even in spring playoffs, honestly, he was like smurfing. But I mean, he for sure also had bad games. Like I know I have had the 0-9 field game and it takes like the cake, but he also had like some bad games. So let's just talk after playoffs. If I had the
all right, okay. Performance. He can turn it around still, Dom. He can still turn it around.
Yeah, I mean...
Then I'll be up there.
Caps is just lucky that MSI is in July. He has more time to prepare for the tournament.
Worked up for him.
Yeah.
True. And so if we are in with playoffs, but I'm not like... I wasn't smurfing, I'd say like I'm saving it for MSI, so...
Makes sense. So, I mean, I guess... this is normally the point where we open up to you. We've been talking for about 2 hours. Is there anything that... you've wanted to talk about, any interesting topics that you would have liked us to bring up on the show that we haven't hit on, or anything that you find super interesting right now?
Well, I mean, the only thing that's like super weird that I was thinking of was just like obviously the rescheduling.
Of MSI, you mean?
Yeah, because like as I mentioned like a few times, like we care a lot about like being burned out, and we care a lot about being like our best at the right times, right? But it's kind of weird now. Which is, I mean, it's understandable, I think it's for sure a good decision by Riot, but it's still gonna be weird now because we're gonna want to be really strong like in playoffs, I guess, and then it's gonna be like we want to like take a break after that, like not be super strong going into summer early, and then we want to be really strong for MSI during a strong split, and after MSI we want to like be bad again, and then be bad for good for playoffs.
You want to be bad? Okay, nice.
He means like if they have to be.
Yeah. I know what he means, but it's just funny to hear like. So we plan on being bad at the beginning of summer, and then after MSI we plan on being bad. It's
you
like,
couldn't
Jesus
believe
Christ.
that G2 did do that though, couldn't you? Because like there's certain weeks where it almost looks like they did. Like this is our week where we just lose the games. That's fine. And then we get out of the way that we win again. It's like the luxury of having a team like that.
It's like, we're gonna lose to Schalke with Inax playing his first games on stage, and then the next week, 2 weeks later, we'll beat Origin and Fnatic. Like no problem. But
it's just like if we want to be bad, both like at the beginning of summer and like towards the end of summer, it's like it's a lot of bad suddenly, So we have to watch out that we don't get too bad.
I mean, are you happy with like the removal of Rift Rivals? Did you like the tournament? Because I personally always hated Rift Rivals as a tournament. I thought it was just garbage. Like, are you happy that tournament is discontinued, or did you like playing in it? It seems like it would be a lot of a hassle for you guys to come over to America, take a massive flight, and then come back and play LEC the next week. So, are you happy with that?
For sure. I I think for sure I'm happy with it. I think I'm not a big fan of traveling. I mean, I think most people are not a big fan of traveling if they travel a lot. Like just like the whole FIing of flying, then being jet lagged, like all these kind of things, they just like suck, like that's just the reality of it. So I'm for sure happy that we get like one less flight in that sense, and one less like jet lag having to go through that. I also think it was kind of an awkward tournament in the sense that it was like a fun tournament, but it didn't feel like all that fun. It was playing serious matches, and it was like we were playing versus NA, and it was like, but it was also supposed to be like a bit hype, but it was like no one was like super hyped about it. It just felt like
NA is so fucking bad.
Like, I mean, you say that, but even like 2017 when we lost super hard to NA, it's just a lose-lose scenario. Like no one actually wins. It's not like people went out, they were like, okay, NA is just insane, because everyone was saying like, oh, NA won because EU. Like if someone said TSM was really insane back then, if someone said like, oh, but EU, it was just real rivals, EU trolling. And if someone said like EU team was really good, then it's like, oh, but they lost to NA. So it was like no one actually wins from it. It just felt awkward to play. It wasn't like, I think they could maybe, if they had made it more fun things, like more of the 1v1s kind of things that they had like a bit of, maybe more like Earth or something like this. Maybe then it would have been more fun. I'm not actually sure.
Like All Stars or something.
Because I enjoy All Stars. I think that's a fun one. Personally, I mean, obviously by far my favorite part of it is like the 1v1 tournament. Unfortunately, I didn't make it all the way this year, but next year is mine.
Yeah, no, I mean, I definitely understand that. It seems like Rift Rivals is just like there is no winner, and then whoever loses just gets hard flamed by the community.
Pretty much.
So yeah, there's no winning there. Well, I guess I mean, I guess that's where we'll end the show for today. I mean, thanks for coming on. I appreciate you giving some insight into G2 and the 80 carry journey that you've been on, and I guess we'll check in again after Spring Split and see if you've
see if you've better.
Yes.
Did it better.
Yeah, see if you've surpassed Perks. But yeah, thank you for coming on, and I guess I'll play your Let It Go song again as the outro. So yeah, I'll see you guys later.
Thank you.
Appreciate all the viewers for watching. See you guys later.
Cheers. Peace.